So, hello, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We have people from across the country. Um, Today, this session is brought to you by the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter under the scope of work of the Community of Practice Vertical. My name is Anne, and I will be your host for the event today. I lead technology for the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter. Supporting me today is Nandini. We do say she handles admin and support, but the reality is nothing of what we do would ever be possible without Nandini. So thank you, Nandini, all as always. Before we begin the session, few hygiene points is please stay on mute. Your video is optional. Uh, if you do have a burning question during the session, I'd request you to please put it in the chat window and we will pick it up at the end of the session. When you are asking a question, please feel free to unmute yourself and have your video on. Our session today has CCUs of 3 CC and 1.5 RT. A claim to this will be published towards the end of the session along with the feedback form, and your certificates will be sent to you over email in the next 15 days. Great. So with that, let's begin this event. I'm going to invite Mr. Sanjeev Bhatia, President of the Mumbai Charter Chapter, for his welcome address.
Thank you, and welcome. I'll say namaskaram and good morning. Welcome to everyone to a warm, vibrant environment here in Mumbai. I hope the same is Bahrain and Indonesia. Our friends are joining so far. I could see this country. I also welcome the eminent speakers of the day for this workshop. Anu Wakhlu, I was just sharing that I heard her almost like 25 years back when I was in Tata Steel. Dr. Sujaya Banerjee was been my ex-colleague at Reliance ADAG Group. Of course, Ananta Mukherjee, Deepa Kannan, and of course, there'll be fire chat side, our own Dexter, the chapter director for Community of Practices. So today we gather for something truly special, a day dedicated to power of compassion in leadership. In the word buzzing with deadlines, disruptions, the digital accelerations, we often forget one simple truth. Leadership is at its center is the human act. And compassion is most transformative force. In this event, which is a part of the Beyond 10 series of coaching community, that is the part of the celebration of our 10th year of ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter, where every month we are having one workshop like this, either virtual or in person. All these workshops invites us to pause, reflect, and reimagine what leadership can be when it is grounded not just in capability but in care. Compassion or compassionate leadership is not softness. Many of people they believe that, but it's a strength, it's clarity, it's the courage in motion. It's a kind of leadership that builds the trust, sparks innovations, and creates workplace where people don't just perform, they flourish. And I'm not saying this theoretical because I personally experienced this not only in my professional career of 32 years, but also in my coaching practice when the CEOs, the CXOs I have seen, when they touch this nerve, I have seen not only the joy in them, but also the output for the organization. In today's session, will take us the powerful journey from understanding the inner landscape of compassionate leadership, and the speakers are the best, which our team has really brought them together, the bouquet, to explore the practical coaching techniques that brings the compassion alive in daily conversations, to hearing the stories from the field that remind us why leading with heart is not negotiable. And finally, to translate compassion into visible, tangible, organizational impact, which I have seen it, and you're going to see this aspect today from these speakers. It's not just another learning event for me, it's a moment, a call to shift from awareness to action, from intention to embodiment. So, to everyone for joining us, coaches, the leaders, the professionals, change makers, thank you for bringing your energy and presence. Your commitment to human centered leadership is what will shape the next decade of growth, resilience, and the organizational well being. So, I invite you to learn and be curious, be bold, be open to being changed. And by the end of today, I know that each one of us will walk away with the renewed clarity and deeper sense of purpose. So be ready to lead with compassion, courage, and conviction. The session is going to bring a lot of things. And once again, I welcome all of you. Let's ignite this powerful journey together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev, for this powerful message. And truly, yes, we are looking forward, and I hope all of you are also looking forward to this conversation today, a powerful truth on how compassion can lead to transformation. Like Sanjeev said, we've got for you today exceptional thought leaders, and each of the sessions today is designed to inspire insights and deepen your practice and offer you some practical tools that can take your coaching conversations to a different level. I'll do a quick recap of what we are covering today. So we begin with an opening keynote by Anu Wakhlu on the heart of leadership and why compassion creates resilient organizations. This will be followed with a class on coaching for compassion, which will be led by Dr. Sujaya Banerjee. We then take a short break and return back to a fireside chat with Deepa Kannan and Tex Tavalis on leading with care. And we finally conclude with a keynote on compassion and action by Anandita Mukherjee. I will introduce each speaker. I promise to give you more information on each speaker before we begin every session. So great. I hope all of you are excited because I am for sure looking forward to this insightful day today. And thank you so much, Ambush. And we begin with our first session, which is an opening keynote. This is on the heart of leadership, why compassion creates resilient organizations. And like I said, this is going to be delivered by somebody who does not need or needs very little introduction in the coaching and leadership community. Anu Wakhlu is an ICF Master Certified Coach. She is a co-founder of Pragati Leadership. She is an author, she is a board director, and she is one of India's most respected thinker on mindful, compassionate leadership. Her work integrates wisdom, traditions, organizational development, and leadership at a scale. Today, she explores how compassion builds trust, resilience, and human centered organizational cultures. Adu, it is a privilege for us to have you here today with us. Thank you, and over to you.
Hi, everyone. So to start with, let me ask the basic thing. I hope, can you see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up if you can. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. So let me start by saying how delighted and honored I am today to be in this forum, sharing with all my co-coaches and co-leaders about the topic which you see in front of you. And I'm really looking forward to interacting with you, to sharing what I know, and to learning from each one of you. And thanks to the ICF Mumbai chapter, I'm really grateful for this opportunity. I think we all look at forums where we can interact. And I honestly, while we share, I think every time I end up learning more than I share. So thank you for that. So let's start. I'd like to, this dude is my most favorite. That is the Dalai Lama. I hope he's okay with apart. Also we call him His Holiness. But perhaps a person who in today's era is really an embodiment of what we call when we look at compassion. I think you just look at him and he exudes compassion. We need to develop this quality more in our corporate organizations. And I think today is an exploration of how we as leaders can really, really bring this important quality, much neglected, to corporate leadership. So I'd like to start by asking you this question, and you can reflect on it as I'm asking you. Uh, think of the last time when somebody at your workplace saw you not from the perspective of your role or your title or your punctuality, but saw you as a person. It could be a boss uh, who looks at you, notices something, and say, "Is everything okay?" When you know it's not okay. Or it could be a colleague who very quietly stands by you during a tough interaction. Just think about the last time this has happened. And if it has happened to you within, let's say, 15 days, maybe you could just have a show of hands or put an icon and an emoji to say you experienced this. So we can see that very often at work, I think it's almost like you're invisible as a human being. You are visible as a performer. You are visible for the work you do. But it's when somebody actually reaches out to you as a person, even if they're saying hello, they look at your eyes and they speak to you. That's when you feel acknowledged. And for me, when I was just sharing this exercise with you, and I think the bottom lining of this is, I think it's these small acts of caring, of compassion, of being seen that often don't make headlines in organizations, but they build a certain trust within you, trust in the workplace, trust in your leadership team. And I think that is what makes organizations unbreakable. I'll pause here. If anybody would like to share something around this, feel free to. We can take one reflection on this. If there is somebody, if not, then I will continue. Okay. Today in the keynote that I'm sharing with you, what I intend to do, I would like to share my understanding of the word compassion. I'd like to share why it is so important to build resilient organizations. And then we will explore a little bit about what organizations can do to build this quality of compassion, empathy within their teams, within the organizational structure. And lastly, a couple of core practices that leaders can take away. And my friend, Dr. Sujaya Banerjee, I'm sure subsequently will do a deep dive into some of these practices in the subsequent masterclass. So here we are. So when very many times, when we look at the word leadership, and leadership is such a, I think, common word now. It's we talk about it in all sectors, we talk about it in our home space too. But whenever we talk leadership, I think for me, at least what I hear is that very often we talk about qualities such as, a visionary leader. We talk about qualities like strategic leader, breakthrough leader, um, fantastic and making things happen. It's very rare that in the leadership qualities arena, we talk about somebody being compassionate. And I believe that in today's environment, when we are in VUCA, Bani, volatile kind of an environment where things keep on changing and things are not what you expect them to be, it is this quality of uh, compassion that helps to circumvent things like uncertainty, burnout, rapid change. And I think leadership is something deeper. Therefore, leadership is not only the words I talked about. Leadership is about the ability to care, the ability to understand, the ability to be there with your team. So often this is a worry for most people. When we sometimes consult and go into organizations and you say, care and compassion, empathy, these are extremely important skills for people. I think the worry often for people is that are we going to become soft? Are we going to become organizations where people will trample us over? Are we going to lose our strategic competitiveness because we no longer have a team which has the killer instincts, but we have a team which is compassionate towards each other? And I believe that compassion is not a soft skill. It is a very strategic strength. And in today's environment, and for that matter, in all environments, I think it allows organizations to stay grounded. It allows you to be creative, and it allows you to be connected at a time when everything around you is volatile, it is shifting, it is changing. And I also believe that compassion is a natural attribute that every person has. If you look at children, you'll find that they're automatically compassionate. They will reach out, they will, not care about, you're rich, poor, it's an animal, it's a plant, it's a human being. They're naturally compassionate. I believe compared to all other leadership skills, compassion is something that is an intrinsic quality that we have. But as we rise, we start learning, we go to college, we go to school, we go to organizations. I think the buzzword then is about competition. It is about being the best and not allowing yourself to be soft. And that's why this natural ability that we all have is something that is never, it never gets the strength and the virtue that it deserves. I'd like to define compassion. Again, there are many, many ways to define it, but this is for me what feels good, and what we as an organization and me as a person also believe in, that compassion at the end of the day is what one can say love in action. So it is not about noticing what is bothering people. It is not about that just having that scan of identifying what's a problem area with people, but it is about the ability to also respond to that. And therefore, what compassion does, it blends awareness, because you've got to be aware of the concerns of people, the troubles people are facing. It needs the ability of empathy to understand, to feel it for yourself, but it also, and very importantly, I want to highlight this bit, it calls for courageous action. And that courageous action is that I am willing to stand up and I'm willing to support and I'm willing to help. And it cannot, as I said, it's an intrinsic quality, but we often lose it. So, this quality only comes in when we have a deep understanding that at the end of the day, we have a shared humanity. We are all human beings. Yes, we have different roles, different issues, but we are one common source. And there is a sense of interconnectedness without which compassion cannot operate. So, this is my definition and our definition of compassion. And again, I think I touched on this a little briefly, and I think Sanjeev also touched on this in when he had his opening remarks. It's not feeling sad or pitiful for people. So, compassion actually, people who are compassionate, organizations who are compassionate actually are very strong. Since I started with Dalai Lama, His Holiness, I would say he's one of the strongest people in India, in our country, and in the world, because he has shown that compassion comes with strength, it comes with dignity, it comes with respect. And it is not just about being a soft leader, it is about being a strong leader. So I just, this is a thing many people get worried about. And the difference between being empathetic and compassionate is that empathy is I understand, I feel with you. I understand your challenge, I understand your concerns, I understand how you're feeling, and I feel it. I also pick it up. But compassion is I feel with you, so there is empathy, but I also choose to help. I choose to serve. I choose to assist. I choose to take action. So the main difference between the two, and compassion is a step up to empathy, is that compassion is about also taking the mini steps it takes to actually support a person who has a certain challenge. Yeah. So again, I'm just trying to clarify some of these concepts. So this is what compassion is, and why should it matter? Why should it matter in organizations? You can be a wonderful, compassionate person at home. You could care for animals and do things in the area of animal rights. Why should it matter in your workplace? Because workplace are all about achieving results, achieving, being that number one company, and the number of employees and the profitability, all of which I believe are very important. But why compassion matters, if you look at it, the first thing is that when you're compassionate, when you care, when you demonstrate that care in action, you create a certain amount of psychological safety for people. So there is trust, there is openness, there is a relationship building that happens, deeper bonds get formed, because I think when somebody's been with you in a tough time, that kind of bond that gets created between the subset of people is amazing, and that in turn leads to collaboration, that leads to respect, that leads to meaningful connections. It also enables well-being, because when I know at work, when I have to, AI helps, and AI is cutting jobs too. So, well-being of people is highly compromised in most corporations. And when I know that my organization is a compassionate organization, doesn't mean I don't have to work. I do have to work. I have to perform. I have to do what is required to be done. But I also feel that people understand what is happening. It reduces the level of stress, anxiety, burnout that otherwise we are seeing so much of in organizations. And lastly, I think because one is compassionate, it helps us to operate out of a sense of consciousness, a sense of not being in an egocentric kind of a space. It helps us to work with consciousness and awareness. And I think that is, again, a very, very important plus point of why organizations need to be compassionate. And of course, the fallout of the entire thing is that when an organization is compassionate, when people within the organization practice compassion, then automatically they are better parents, they are better partners, they are better citizens, they are better human beings in the way they show up for work. So this is why I think organizations really, really need to consciously become more compassionate than what they are today. So just again on that bit, I think in today's era, we are not only concerned about, I have to be a micromanager, I have to be the leader, the one sole leader who matters in an organization. When we bring compassion to our workplace, I think what we do is we create a very important shift in our leadership paradigm, which is that we are shifting from connection, from control to connection. So when there is more of connection that is happening within an organization, you don't require to be that, one leader who knows it all, says it all, but you have to be the leader who shows up along with other managers and other leaders in the environment. So what I'm really trying to bottom line and say is that in today's way of leading in corporations, everything else matters. Strategy matters, vision matters, your level of innovation matters, but what matters incredibly significantly is also about how you as a leader show up in compassion, so that people feel cared for, people feel respected, people know that this organization is not just it's not just my role, it's me as a human being that is also important. So, what I would like to do now that we've looked at what is compassion, we looked at the advantages of compassion in corporate organizations. I'd like to share a little bit about what are some things organizations can do to to become more compassionate. Again, I think we have to talk about this, which is the starting point is the role of the leaders within an organization. So leaders actually, in order to make an organization competitive and resilient, whose job it is, it's the role of leaders. So, and within organizations, when people feel seen, when people feel heard, their resilience grows up. And that, when resilience goes up, it replaces fear, and collaboration replaces competition. And I think that's the quality of leadership, the ability to show that you care as much as it is the ability to share, to show that you want results and you want high performance. But what comes first? It's a carrot and stick kind of a thing. So the first is that you're important. I care about you. The organization cares about you. So, and who creates that sort of vibe in the organization? It is the leaders themselves. So leaders create the emotional tone in an organization, and therefore they have to be visible in how they respond to mistakes in the organization, mistakes by people, how they listen to concerns of people, how they celebrate efforts, not just outcomes. I think today we keep on talking about outcome-based, organizations and outcome-based KRAs. But the reality is there is effort which is also to be acknowledged. I mean, you cannot say it's just the outcome. It's also what are you doing to make that change happen. And one example, I'm just sharing one, there are many examples of that, has been Nadella. And we are all aware that he also had a lot of challenges at home. So probably that quality of empathy, compassion was built up in him. But when he entered Microsoft, which was a highly competitive, very different organization led by his predecessors, I think what he really made happen and which contributed to the shift in the market about the competitiveness of the organization was that he shifted the culture from a know-it-all culture to learn-it-all culture. And that cultural shift, which he kind of led the way to doing that, is can we move to listening to each other? Can the leaders of the organizations not only say what I know, but can they be open to what I don't know? And what can I learn from others? And just this shift this shift that was created by Mr. Nadella actually kind of created this entire growth set mindset in the organization. I think there are many case studies on this. We all know that. And finally, the market cap of Microsoft, as we know today, is significantly higher from what it is. The Microsoft products are known in the market now. And all that has happened because of the change in culture that one single leader has brought it. So competition is also, we create competitiveness in a positive way. We say that let us try to be the best version of ourselves. And when leaders set that tone, that is what goes down the line. So we start off with this whole thing about the role of leaders. And again, I'm just giving another example of another well-known leader, which is Indra Nui. I think when she came into Pepsi and she was leading them, I think, and you know how successful she was. What she really made happen was that as an organization, we want profits, but we want profits with purpose. So therefore, the kind of systems that were put in into the organization, which looked at how can we get water harvesting done in villages, how can we balance what we are taking with what we are giving in the organization, help to create that mindset that corporations are not only greedy capitalists, making profits and ruining the ecosystem, but they are people who can change the world. And therefore the bottom line is that leaders and their behavior and their actions creates the difference. So this is one thing that organizations need to do, is make sure that their leaders resonate with with the aspect of how to be more compassionate, and they demonstrate in action. I don't know how many of you because we have people from different sectors attending, but I don't know how many of us when we go into organizations really see compassion as a behavior in the competency framework. I don't know. Yeah, so this is something to think about. The second thing, building on this, is the aspect that it is very easy to say, our organization is so good, we do this and we do that. And I think all of us have gone into offices with fantastic posters put up about the vision, mission of the organization, what you believe in, your philosophy, your values. I think it's great. It's a good starting point because that's what you intend to follow, that's what you intend to achieve. But at the end of the day, you have to move away from just posters and value statements. And we have to design systems, we have to design processes that actually reflect what you believe in. So again, I just gave that example of where do we ever see a competency in a competency framework which talks about compassion? Do we see that? Do we even see a competency, even if it's put in a softer section of the competency framework, which is about empathy? Little bit of empathy I do see now coming up in some framework, but it's not really there. So what I'm really trying to say is, until our organizations don't walk their talk, if they are really serious about being more compassionate and more caring, then it becomes another poster which is put on a wall, great for town halls and other things, but not, we don't see it in action. And one organization, again, very, very well known, the Tata Group, I think compassion is part and parcel of its DNA. So policies, for example, now how do you know that? It's put there, yes. But policies such as lifetime healthcare support for employees who are injured on the job, um, you know, uh, is an example of that compassion being put into action. For example, there are companies, many companies, who include well-being and inclusion as part of their PMS metrics. For a manager, one KRA or KPI is also their well-being, the team's well-being, and the inclusion. So I want to really re-emphasize that it's very important for organizations to be compassionate. We can train leaders to be compassionate, but if we do not have good systems, good processes, good OD interventions that are actually resonating with this, it stays as it is. For example, all organizations do town halls, right? So in the town halls, we talk performance, we address concerns of people. Fantastic. We can also in the town halls recognize people who within the organization or outside the organization have actually done a compassionate act. They've been kind to people, they've been helpful to people. It's a starter. It's not the only thing you can do, but it's a starter. So our R&Rs are on performance, some R&Rs on our values, some are on the great leader, the great manager, etc. Can we also have an R&R on compassion, because that will pave the way for organizations to be more compassionate. The third thing that organizations certainly can do, and actually are doing also, is to create psychological safety within the workplace. And I think this is where coaching, all of us as coaches, this is an area where I think it makes a big difference. Because when managers not just manage, but they also coach, they listen, they understand, they ask powerful questions, they support the person to take action, it creates a certain tone in the organization that makes people feel cared for. And again, I will re-emphasize that this is where we as coaches and the management of organization can really make a easy and a fast change in the way they manage their organizations. Because I think when we are familiar with the ICF coaching competencies and a coaching style, when we have a coaching mindset, what do? We embody presence, we embody empathy, we embody curiosity, and all that is actually felt and experienced by the team members in the organization. So I have found in organizations where managers have been trained not only to ask performance, of course you need to do that part, but also to do coaching conversations where many HR and non-HR people are trained in how to be listening posts for people. It creates a very different cultural arena for people to feel safe, and therefore people to open up, for people to give ideas, to share concerns, and be part of the growth story of the organization. Um, this is a practice I do recommend often to people, because as managers, we all do regular reviews and we performance reviews, like a team check-in. While it's called a team check-in, it's not really a check-in that way. It is really a check-up, like how have you performed, how many calls have you made, what are the numbers looking like. I think it's also along with that necessary to keep some time or do one review, which is not a check up review of performance, but check in to the feelings, the concerns, the challenges of people. And when we do that, along with the checkups, which is the other part of the review, then we help to create organizations which are compassionate, which are resilient, and where collaboration is promoted, where listening is promoted. So I think this is very important, and I feel this is a very easy step organizations can take. This is another easy step, which is that we need to create places for reflection. If I look at most organizations I work in and have worked in also, I think most of the time people don't have any time. Actually, most of the time people don't have any time. And it is something that, it's like, you're on a treadmill and you can't get off the treadmill. So even if you ask a person that, what do you think, what do you ask a reflective question, they're in a hurry to give an answer, because if they reflect, it takes time away from the doing part. So our organizations have become doing machines, and in a doing machine there is no time, and it is not even validated, it's not appreciated if a person just wants a little bit of quiet time to think, because we really want people to do most of the time. So I have, there are, for example, what I really liked in Unilever, I think they're still doing it, is that they did a lot of workshops which were called My Purpose workshops. And that My Purpose workshop was I think many other companies don't call it that, but similar thing is happening, is that you connect with people at a human level. You allow, it's not a competency related program, it's allowing people to look at what's important to them, what are my values, what matters to me in my life, what are my challenges. Yeah, it's not that it's directly linked to compassion, but what it does is these kind of spaces, workshops, opportunities give people a chance to reflect. They give people a chance to think. They help you to look at, are you doing the right job, are you doing it right, what matters to you. Many Godrej, for example, also the Godrej group of industry, they also have something like a wellness day, where people are encouraged to share wellness tips, and also areas where they're struggling with. Storytelling platforms are also created in many organizations. A couple of things which I have found useful is a pause hour or a pause minute, which is like in our own organization at 12 and 4, we have a bell which rings. And when that bell rings, you stop doing whatever you're doing, even if you're talking to a client, you say, just a second, and you take a pause. And that pause, it seems 1 minute what's going to happen. If nothing else, your heart stops pumping so fast, it slows down. And sometimes you also get a new idea. You get a you can think of something different from the track you've been on. So practices such as pause hour, pause, I should have written pause minute, because hour is hell of a lot. Compassion circles. Now compassion circles are what? They are just circles of employees sitting around. They're not sobbing and crying, but they're just sharing about themselves. I think what I'm really trying to say, organizations need to give time for people to talk about themselves, to talk about their feelings, legitimate, illegitimate, whatever, talk about what they're excited about. So, those kind of small circles, so 20 minutes, 1 hour is very much possible. And then the talking stick, this is taken from the Red Indian tradition where you sit in a circle of a talking stick is passed around and you hold it, and whoever has the talking stick shares something about themselves. And if somebody doesn't want to do that, you skip it. So basically, folks, what I'm really trying to say, that as HR managers, OD experts, coaches who consult with organizations sometimes in how to set up a coaching culture, I think we can create and we should recommend spaces for reflection, storytelling, quietening the mind, because once that happens, the feelings surface, and that helps us to create more resilient organizations, because otherwise the feelings are all bottlenecked. Another thing that helps is that compassion is not only about your team members, it's not only about people within the organization. A very good expression of it is, especially when we say interconnectedness. What does that mean? So my community outside my office, the other people in the same building as my office space, they're also part of our lives, they're also part of the world. Nature, the animals, the birds, the water, the rivers. I mean, if we are not connecting with them, we are not doing anything about them, we lose a very, very important aspect of compassion. I don't know how many of you are, but I'm a passionate animal lover, and I feel sometimes that when I'm with animals, I can really, really see that that love that comes from their eyes. So you connect with that quality of compassion in you, and that compassion then also gets expressed at work and in other aspect of your life. So I just want to emphasize this bit, that it's not only within the office, but even if you do a CSR activity, call it CSR or compassion, you go as a group, plant some trees, clean up some slum, talk to people in the other offices, give us tray. I know I may not be liked in Delhi for this, but give us tray some food. I think you bring out compassion in action. Yeah. So these are some things organizations can do. And I think these are four things you can do. You can get leaders to demonstrate compassion. You can have your HR and other business systems reinforce what is important to you. You can create spaces for reflection. You can coach managers and leaders on how to connect with your employees, and lastly, extend outside the workforce. So, what do leaders need? So, leaders, in order to be compassionate, again we come back to leaders, right? Because systems and all will take you somewhere, but finally it's the leader's mindset. So number one, I would say, slow down. So we need to demonstrate agility and speed in our actions, but as a human being, slow down, because it's only when you slow down that you notice people. I just give you an example. If I'm in a car and I go in a certain neighborhood, I hardly notice anything that's there. But if I decide to walk and I walk the same neighborhood, I notice so much. I notice the dirt on the ground. I noticed a beautiful lady walking. I noticed shops I've never seen before. And I notice so much. And that's only because I've chosen a slower mode of transport, right? Now, it's not to say that we shouldn't travel by metro or cars. I'm just saying, as leaders, let us slow down when we enter the office, notice people, listen deeply. When I'm saying notice people, see them, because when you see a person, you can pick up partially what is happening with them too. So, this is one thing. The second thing is, I think, coming back to that, be clear, balance empathy with clarity. I'll give you a small example. There's a Swamiji, our family believes in, respects, and we follow his practices, Swami Bhumananda. And what was shocking for all of us is, once he told us that I fired four people from my, and he used the word fired. I fired four people from my company. So we said, fired? Why did you, Swamiji? Because, in ashram, you don't expect people to be fired. So he said they were not performing. I said, what? You're not performing? So he said, no, no, they're not doing their job. They were not doing what they had to do. So we said, sir, but you're a spiritual leader. How can you fire people? And his thing, the way he answered it, he said, I am being very compassionate to them and to myself when I fire them, because they are not the right people for the job. They are going to struggle here, and I'm going to struggle constantly because they are not performing. So I'm just trying to bring this point, that being compassionate is not about tolerating low performance. So we have to be very clear that we convey our expectations to people, but do it in a way which is respectful and supportive of people. And lastly, I think what helps a lot is to have that inner conviction, that inner courage, that even in tough times, we will be open hearted. Unfortunately, many of us, with this whole buzz of competitiveness, costs going high, sanctions, and what is going to happen next, we've become very cautious. We've become cautious with ourselves. We've become cautious with our pockets, wallets. And I think open heartedness is not about opening your wallet, but open heartedness is that even in tough times, I keep the engine of compassion, listening, empathy there, so that I am grounded in centeredness as I operate in volatile time, right? And therefore, as I come to the closure of my session, I would say that compassion isn't a luxury. It's a necessity in today's world. It is not like an add on. It is very much a part of our leadership competency. It has to be part of the way we work. And therefore, we can encourage people to take compassionate actions to build that muscle of compassion. It was there with us. Perhaps we've lost it, but we can bring it back. And I think an important shift that leaders and HR heads and all of us need to make is how can I get more out of my people? You'll get it. but it will happen when you care for your people so that they can give their best. And that's a paradigm shift. And that is what I believe helps organizations to be compassionate in action, not compassionate in theory. So, a couple of questions to ponder on as I almost close my session today, which is that this is something each one of you attending this conclave today can look at. That who is the one person with whom you can be more compassionate this week? Okay? Identify. And it's a very somebody had once told me this, that often you're married to your worst allergy. So if you have a partner, maybe we can start there, right? So who is the person you can lead with greater compassion this one? May not be that, maybe somebody else. And the second thing you could reflect on, that how could you bring more empathy and clarity into your next conversation? Think about these two as you go further deep dive into the content and the flow for the session today and the rest of the day. So I'd like to just close by saying that compassion builds resilient organization because it builds resilient and compassionate people. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm sure you're super excited about the sessions to come, and we'll really have a fantastic time ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anu. Wow, I mean, this was wonderful. And while I listened to, some of the things you said, I mean, I'm an avid animal lover also. But I thought, that side of me can never be at work. Because, like you said rightly, I think most of us here also agreed. I mean, it is definitely not a strategic strength. It's seen as a weakness being compassionate because you're not displaying what you are expected to be displaying at work. I loved some of the other things he said. It's love in action. It is choosing to help. The shift from moving on how we can learn from others. Um, and yes, of course, the four things that you spoke of, the leaders imbibing it, making it part of the system. I loved the checkups and the check-ins that you spoke of. How can we make it a space to reflect? How can we allow for spaces to reflect? And then, making the organization, the culture, a psychological safe space, and then not just limiting ourselves to what is in the office, but also taking beyond the workspace. Wow, that was truly, truly amazing. Now, we've got some comments here also. If you're okay, I can quickly talk about them,
Yes, please.
and then we can take questions. So, we had somebody who said they loved the difference between empathy, compassion. Somebody did make a comment to say compassion can also be manipulated by people. Uh, And yes, people acknowledge that it is not part of a competency framework. It's seen as soft leadership. Somebody asked a question to say, does any system and process really get compassion inbuilt? And when we speak about it, people look at it as something which is routine in a bureaucratic way. Uh, should it be a competence part of for competence, or it should be ingredient of culture? Uh, it has to come from within, not because of the expectation of reward or recognition. Uh, okay, displayed behaviors are competence. It's a highly rated quality in yoga, psychology, and Buddhism. And some people said, there's some Anupam who said, I've been practicing empathy in all my functions, and you have to have a lot of inner strength to practice these attributes. Uh, yeah, and then there's a lot of comments around thanking you. There's one question which says, how maybe structure the compassion circle conversation?
I was just, in fact, responding to Mohan. So it's quite simple, Mohan. It's just like you get about 8 to 10 people in a room. You make sure that they are sitting in a circle. That's the circle part of it. And there are no tables and things like that. And then you just ask them to start by sharing about what acts of compassion they may have experienced or others or they would have probably done for other people, and it just starts like that. And sometimes people feel, oh, I've not done anything, but then as others start speaking, you notice that, you know, sometimes it's a conscious act, like I will be compassionate today, but it's actually an inbuilt thing that is there in people if you allow it to be visible. So those compassion circles, that's the way you do it. And if you keep on repeating it once a month, 45 minutes with different sets of people, it really moves people into deeper compassion. So that's the way, and you can speak to me later for more ideas on this.
Aniket, you had a question.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Anu, for such a wonderful session. I think I can thank on behalf of the entire chapter. So, my question is about uh, cultural adoption. I work in the grief support space, and my endeavor is to go beyond individuals and also to get compassionate grief support spaces within organizations, starting Mumbai. My question, like I said, is about cultural adoption. How can we effectively sensitize the entire leadership ecosystem within an organization, from the board level down, to embrace compassion as one strategic imperative? What is the most effective way to gain authentic buy-in so these practices are seen as a vital element for performance and not just a soft HR initiative? Because in my experience, I've seen even as an employee myself, I've seen this being termed as ये काम की जगह है, this is workplace, ये घर नहीं है, this is not your social thing that you expect such emotions and compassion. So I'd appreciate if you could address this.
I think it really starts, as you rightly said, at the board level, or at least the management team level, because people have to believe it's important. So I think it starts by a conversation around what are the kind of enablers or important behaviors that leaders need to have if we want to make this organization the organization of our dreams. Now, I think all organizations perhaps are not automatically tuned to this. So there will be many organizations who are highly performance oriented from the point of numbers, and therefore may not be willing to give the space and the time for compassion to be seen as an imperative. So I think it starts with the leadership thinking. You could pose that how important it is and the benefits of it. I think that if that adoption is there, then you have to look at how do you integrate it into the organizational structure, the beliefs, etc. I think the starting point is the articulation and belief that it is there. It could be part of your cultural elements. It could even, I believe, be part of your competencies, because I believe, in my thinking, competencies also have to dovetail with your values and your culture. It cannot be my culture articulation is very sweet, and this is very hard. It has to be in line with each other. So I think that adoption is there. Then obviously, as you get people to actually demonstrate compassion in the way they're interacting with people, start by coaching. It's a wonderful way to demonstrate compassion in action, in my opinion, apart from the other things that we talked about. But it starts with the leadership team actually making that decision that compassion is indeed very important for us, and we will adopt it as one of the critical strategies for our organization going ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Anu.
Thank you, Anu. Mohan, before we go to your question, let me just ask Ajay. Ajay, you had asked this question on would compassion be competence or an ingredient of culture? I hope that got answered. Or do you still have some more questions around it?
Yeah, so my thought was just that because when we talk of it being as a competency, that means we need a displayed behavior all the time. Then only it gets verified. However, at the same time, with all the kind of pressures that we work on, like Anu has already highlighted, can the companies really, uh, say that, no, this is something we want I understand Tata's excels in compassion from what I've seen and what I've read about them, and I think Sanjeev has also commented on that. But I'm still not fully convinced whether I understand there'd be, two different opinions about whether it's a competence or a part of culture. Uh, I'm not too sure. I still feel it's more related to an individual's behavior and culture rather than a competence, and that's my take. I'm sure there could be different opinions.
Yeah, they could be different, but the thing is whether you put it in culture, you put it in competence, is it there? Is it there in the organization? And importantly, are we taking action on it? See, organizations, every organization want to multiply their profit. They want to be the number one profit maker. And the same time, when we keep on getting obsessed with only that part, then I think we miss out on the joy of working, and the joy of caring, the joy of being kind, because there's a joy. Any act of compassion is actually a self, it's a positive thing for yourself, because whenever you're supporting somebody, you're listening to somebody, something within you changes. You become a better human being, you become a better person, I think, and that leads you to be a better manager, better leader. So I think this is where the organization has to make that call, and all organizations, I repeat, are not geared up for it, but there are many organizations who are willing and believe that it's not only the end number, it's not just a number game, it's also about contribution, and contribution to your own team by being compassionate is a wonderful contribution. That's the way I look at it.
Thank you.
Rajiv, do you want to go? Then I'll take the questions on the chat. You've got your hand raised.
Hello.
Sorry, and you're saying something?
You had your hand raised, Sanjeev.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I just, because some questions.
you're on mute, Sanjeev.
Thank you. And this is about this discussion which is going on. And I'm talking about a personal experience here, just to supplement with the live examples. Like when I joined Tata Steel in 1987, I didn't know anything about empathy and all this stuff, to be honest. I was being trained not by programs or training, but experiencing firsthand. So when we talk about like small things like the blood donation, and it was not about just the blood donation. If somebody is going for a blood donation, they've been given 1 day leave in Tata Steel. And but the is people not been taking leave, they're going and they're coming back to work, though the leave was there. This is about the culture I'm talking about. When you talk about CSR, it's just not the fund for CSR. You connect with the tribal areas and talk about the fertility, they talk about farming and expanding and everything. And over the period, it was so strong that Jharkhand happens to be fully infected with Naxalites, bordering of Orissa and others. But there's not a single attack in the city because of this so-called compassion of the organization towards the community. It was going far, far long, and it was a culture. Even you had the 5 days leave you can take during the year for volunteering for any kind of jobs where you volunteer. I don't think I have seen any organization who has been giving 5 day leave in an annual to go for do the volunteer job. When the 3 million ton was announced and to bring that steel to be made in a year, uh, parallelly, the organization, the team management, and the board decided to plant 3 million trees across and in and around Jamshedpur. So the whole community was with you at that time. So when you talk about compensation, it's all about community, your surrounding, your people, your family, everyone. And that's where the culture gets created. You don't have to really speak, you have to act. And this is what happened. So I'm just complimenting Anu. I think you touched upon topics, the organization who can create culture by consistently repeating the same thing and will get ingrained in the minds of the employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, Anu. Would you be okay? There is, I think, one question for Mohan. If you can respond back from the chat so that we can move ahead to with the next session. If you're okay with that, Arun. I think he's asking you what to do in the what should be done in the time of those pause placeholders. So he's got a question on the chat.
Oh, I don't know.
Are there any steps we follow? Is there a structure?
Yeah. I think personally, I'm a great believer for structure, because I think if you leave it only to intent, you go so far because other
Yeah.
things come in. So follow a structure. So I think, for example, as I said, maybe at a certain point of time, you give it a pause break, you make some sound, or it comes automatically on people's calendars, and it is, or the manager, whoever is interacting, make it into a system. So at this point there will be a pause break. Obviously, if you're traveling and all that, that won't happen, but 80% of the time it does happen. So you need to do that. And any structure, just speak to me later, Mohan. I will
I'll-
be happy to.
I will. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Anu. This has been, I mean, from the questions, you can understand how impactful it has been for all of us here. As a small token, we have, and then if you can put it up on screen, we have a small certificate of appreciation for you, Anu, and we'll be sharing this with you on the email separate. Thank you so much for coming in over to today, Anu. With that, let's move on to the next session. This one is an experiential masterclass on coaching for compassion, coaching practices for human-centered leadership. And we have with us Dr. Sujaya Banerjee, who is the founder and CEO of Capstone People Consulting. She's a global respected leadership and transformation expert. She's coached thousands of leaders over 3 decades and designed empathy-driven leadership models for some of India's largest organizations. Today, she brings practical frameworks, real cases, and tools we can apply immediately as part of our coaching practice. Dr. Banerjee, welcome. It's an honor to have you with us today. And over to you.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you everyone for the invitation. Anu, was a pleasure to listen to you here today, and I'm glad that you're here in the audience. And Anu and I go back a long way, and so does Arun, her husband Arun. So it's great and fantastic to have you around here. So welcome everyone. I am going to urge you, because this is almost in a masterclass form, that you treat it as a learning session, which means keep your books and your pens handy, so that you can basically write. In an era of neurosciences, there's still great value on putting pen to paper. So I'm going to request you to be able to do that, so that you're able to remember what you learned here, or what you listened to here today. And I'm going to ask you to take away vocabulary, because there's just so much learning that is embedded in vocabulary. So use the chat, of course, and periodically I will ask you to come onto the chat to be able to respond to certain questions. But by and large, keep the chat active with your comments, with your insights, and obviously with your questions. So I'm going to try and see how we can balance between being able to teach you a couple of things and respond to your questions. So I'll try and take as many as I can as we're, sort of progressing through the conversation. And then we'll try and see whether we can spend the last maybe 5 or 10 minutes specifically, focusing on questions that perhaps didn't get answered. So our conversations around leading with compassion, and like Anne just mentioned, this has been a huge area of passion for me, which comes from years of having worked for various organizations. And I'll just take you through my choreography in a minute. So that's really, who I am, what I've done so far in my career, names of the companies that I worked for during the course of my career that's lasted over 3 decades. So that's Shell, British Petroleum, British Gas, the SR Group. I've been on boards. I discontinued being on boards because I run my own company now, and it's very sort of compelling, and I don't have the kind of bandwidth of time to be on boards, to commit to be on boards. But I'm very closely associated with leading educational institutions in their executive education space. both in India and overseas. I work very significantly as a global educator for Duke Corporate Education, that's been listed as the #1 corporate education, school in the world. And they've been rated #1 by Financial Times. And all the work that we do with them is amazing because it's across countries like South Africa, Africa, the Middle East, the UK, the Southeast Asia. So we're really very wide experience in both leadership capability building, change management, culture building, and coaching. What you see at the bottom are all the brands of the various entrepreneurial initiatives that I've created over a period of time. I also lead Your Commune, which is a very large community of senior professionals who basically have participated actively over the years to be able to build a following of over 35,000 members. This is the community, supporting the community to be able to win together, especially in the space of being able to drive change within organizations. And I'm the author of a book called Switch: How 12 Indian Companies Manage Change Successfully. So coaching has been very central to the work that I've done. And, clearly, even from the keynote that Anu addressed, I missed some part of it, but most parts of what I got is that there's clearly a need for this within organizations. And I saw it solely missing over the years. And, some of the recollections that Sanjeev was sharing here from his days with the Tata Group and so on, I've kind of, they resonated because, I remember getting to work with a skip in my step every day. And I'm wondering how we've arrived at a point where, basically the two most popular phrases that you see on the social media is toxic boss and toxic work environment. And when I've tried understanding this, because it was so repetitively being used that I understood that it was a word that meant many things. So what does toxic really mean for people who are calling out for workplaces to be less toxic, for not experiencing joy in the experience of work? Finding managers who are toxic, which means that they don't find inspiration like we did in the people that we met in at the start of our careers. These were people who were invested in us. They were very interested in our success. And they played very significant roles as mentors during our time within these organizations and even beyond. And so I was wondering what has changed so dramatically for toxic boss and toxic work environment to be such prominent expressions to describe their experience of work. And if you look at the Gallup study for India, and I know there's a global study that is kind of similar, but the one for India, there's over 30% people who feel angry at work every day. There's over 30% people who feel sad at work every day. And there's a staggering 49%, which is 50% of the people are looking forward to leave their current jobs. And so, clearly the missing ingredient, okay, in what it is that is causing this toxic, what they really mean by toxic is not experiencing empathy and compassion in the workplace. And I did do some work to be able to figure this out because I wanted to unbundle the word toxic to understand better, why people had such a sort of pushback to the experience of work, why this was not attractive, why this is not increasingly not becoming a forced space to go to because you need to earn a livelihood and not because you're really enjoying the experience of being able to learn and contribute to something that is meaningful. So interestingly, compassion is as a word is derived from a Latin word called compati, which means you suffer together. Okay, it's very interesting where it even comes from. Compassion is a strong feeling of sympathy and sadness for the suffering and the bad luck or the misfortune of others, and therefore wish to help them. Now, I wish rather than a large definition of this kind, we just underline the last line, which is the wish, a wish to help them. And that really is the defining difference between, basically feeling bad or sad for someone versus wanting to intervene to help. And it's interesting to reflect on this because a lot of people have the capacity to feel bad or sad for somebody else, and which does not mean that they actually intervene to help. And the space that you find this missing very sorely is particularly the workplace. And because the workplace is considered a group of people coming together to be able to basically deliver work outcomes or work results and business results. And I heard someone saying earlier that, the kind of feedback people get from people around is, what do you really want from us? You know what I mean? This is not your home. You've come here to work. You earn a salary. You're supposed to contribute to our journey here. And we're not here to cater to every single minute of your feeling mad, bad, sad, glad. We're not here to be able to cater to that. Let's just grow up. Let's just become adults and start doing what the business on hand really is, which is to be able to deliver to the outcomes of the organization. Now, the thing is that, to the point Anu was making earlier, you're not human doings, you're human beings. And it's logical to be able to understand. And unfortunately, that's common sense, which is sorely lacking in many places, which is to understand that when you bring a group of human beings to be able to do what you're asking them to do, them reacting emotionally to whatever are the turmoils of the organization or what their experiences within your workplaces, you can't ask them to shut that off. It's not a switch. And somebody asked Dr. Susan David of Harvard a question, which is, how do I block off negative emotions? How do I just make sure that I don't experience negative emotions? And she said, you're asking for the competencies of the dead. Yeah, only the dead don't experience anything. Yeah, negative emotions is, for as long as you live, negative emotions is going to be part of your journey. It's going to be it's basically how you're living and breathing every day. You are going to constantly see and experience negative emotions. So not wanting them, I mean, it'd be lovely to not have them at all, but it's unrealistic to expect that you will have a group of people working towards a common purpose, and particularly in the current times of constant change, turmoil, and flux, and that you're not going to get emotional reactions to this. And so the key line here is a wish to want to help them. And we'll talk a bit more about this. How does this pan out in the context of coaching? And, one of my missions in life with all the organizations that I work with, not only in India, but abroad, is how do we position, and, this is to the point on how do we create a business case for compassion or focus on compassion within the organization? It's for the win-win of both talent and the organizations. And unless they plan to run their organizations with robots, it's going to be very difficult to not want to manage the part of how people feel at work. And so, this business of demonstrating compassion, and there are many layers to what compassion would really mean. But I'm going to simply say, if we don't want to cater to how people are feeling in an organization, it's going to be extremely short-lived to be able to have them contribute anything valuable to your process. And so my value proposition to organizations is that you want a perennial supply of talent, right? You're not going to be able to achieve all these audacious goals that you're talking about. And it's great to take these moonshot goals, and it's great to have have board delighted at what it is that you're attempting to achieve. But surely you're not doing this without human beings. And so if we don't make this human centered, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to achieve what you're setting out to achieve. Right. And by human centered, we're not asking to cater and pander to people's tantrums. That's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about acknowledging people as humans. We're talking about acknowledging what they might be experiencing without them having to even tell you that. For instance, it's not uncommon in the current environment to have constant flux in the top leadership roles, right? So you have, the early part post the pandemic had perhaps some replacements at the CXO levels. Yeah, over a period of time, those people who were replaced got replaced. Yeah, and eventually we even started seeing some of our clients have two in the box, which is you're not being able to trust one person to be able to lead the organization. You're putting two people in there. What a presumption on two human beings being aligned on being able to drive the business of the organization. Completely blind to the dynamics of putting two people in the box. Now, it might be the need of the hour, but what are you doing? What work are you doing around these two people to be able to make sure that they succeed if there are two of them in the box? There are human implications to two people sharing the CEO role, right? And I think commonsensically you understand that. And we saw not a lot of concern in wanting to work around these two. They were just thrown in the box together and they're supposed to figure it out, right? And then over a period of time now, what we're seeing happening, and I'm sure you're all experiencing it, you're all working for organizations or you have clients working for organizations, and I'm saying you're all seeing that around, and now it's the CEOs being replaced. right? And so you have a new CEO and a new head of business, and you have a new somebody else, and you have a new immediate boss. And so surely you're not imagining that this is not impacting people and performance adversely, that this is not causing negative emotion. One of the clients who spoke to us recently told us that the head of the business has left, the head of HR has left, there is a new head of the group who came in, that person has left, there is a group CHRO who's come in, he left, so their CHRO has become the group CHRO in the sense that he's trying to handle these two roles. Meanwhile, a third group head, business head, has left. And I'm just saying, you're seeing this happening all around you. And what are our human reactions to this? Yeah, am I working for a steady organization? Because people at the senior most level seem to be exiting here. There's certainly something wrong, right? Two is, is this organization impatient because they hired these people and within a few months they've started going out, which means we don't have the ability to integrate this new talent. So how can I expect longevity when I don't see senior people within the organization experience longevity? Number three, that why aren't they being given a chance to be able to prove themselves? How are they making these decisions so quickly, whether mutually? How are they making these decisions within 3 months, 4 months, what have you? And so when you're experiencing this flux, how can you feel secure as an employee at any level within the organization? You're wondering about your own career. You feel disempowered. You feel stuck because a lot of decisions don't get made when people aren't available within the organization. And so how do we, as coaches, as a community of coaches, bring understanding to what individuals within organizations are experiencing in times of constant uncertainty, ambiguity, change, unprecedented, situations that people find themselves in, and most importantly, experiencing the need for constant change and transformation in terms of the expectations that the organization is having. And every new leader at any level means that there will be some turmoil, there will be discontinuing of previous processes, some new ones coming in, and everyone's trying to show their dance. And in the bargain, you're expecting alignment to different levels to be able to adapt, adjust, and change to this constantly changing environment. So compassion in the coaching context is actually an intentional practice of empathetic presence, non-judgmental understanding on when people actually, so there's a lot of it about just giving vent to how I experience things. Supportive engagement that empowers the client, and to explore challenges, values, growth, that with your client, by offering safety and trust to the individual. So there is a huge need for this. And I know that there are individuals reaching out individually for coaching, not even waiting for the organization to be able to offer them this, because there is such an acute requirement to be able to be heard, to be able to be seen. And in times of constant flux, there's so much flux at the top that invariably you take the mid-levels and the junior levels for granted. I'm going to further talk about compassion and coaching in that it involves recognizing the humanity of the client in the situation. And I dare say that one of my passion areas for a very long time has been about something that Anu touched upon as well, which is how do you get the leader to be the coach, right? And what I mean by that is they're in the occupational intimacy space. In the world of talent management, occupational intimacy means you have closest access uh, to the people who are actually being, coached, the people who are actually being impacted. So the person who's closest to them is the manager and can help make meaning of the environment the best to the individual. So as a coach, you can as an external coach, you can offer them the support to understand where they find themselves and then try to be able to make meaning of that for them. But it's so powerful to have someone right close to them who actually understands and recognizes the humanity of people over the designations or the roles that people are actually playing. And that there is space for emotions within the department, within the function, within the way in which we work together, because you can't ignore them. I mean, I just mentioned Dr. Susan David saying that only dead people don't experience emotions. So we can't live in the denial of the fact that, especially in times of constant change and uncertainty, you don't have a lot of negative emotions that people are indeed experiencing. So really encouraging self-awareness around that, self-acceptance around that, without being the rescuer or the fixer. And this means that people feel comfortable to show their vulnerability to you about how it is that they're really feeling, and how powerful if you can actually do that even with your boss. So I'll give you an example, right? So, and I will share a lot of stories as we go along, because this has been such a world of work and passion around this. So one of our clients, this is a very large and a very sort of successful organization. And, we were doing an intervention around leading with EI, emotional intelligence, for this organization. And we anchored this in a psychometric, which is called the MHS EQI. And during the conversation with the, with the client, it was very interesting that, it was a very low score. And so this is one of the participants of this intervention. She's a senior person. She manages supply chain for the organization. So she's a qualified senior person within the organization and has an extremely low EQ score. And so obviously, we looked at it, she knew the norm and she knew she was below that. And she said, look, just going to tell you, I know this is a low score, and I just want to tell you that I'm not surprised with anything I see in this report. And I said that, all right, I mean, and why are you not surprised? And she said, oh, because in the last 1 year, I've lost both my parents. And I basically, I am the only child, and I lost both parents in a gap of 2 months. So it was the dad who passed first and then the mom. And she said, ever since and I know that I have not coped with this well at all. And so I basically don't meet friends. I don't talk to people beyond work. I come only to work. I tell people at work I'm not available because there's something at home. At home, I tell people that there's something at work, but I can't get myself to celebrate anything. I haven't celebrated even my own birthday. I have a little boy, and I think I've shut myself out even to him. I am extremely, extremely abusive to my team. And I think I'm bordering on being the most unkind person I know. And then after I finish my venting, I feel very, very, very shameful, and I feel very sad. And I am not enjoying my life at all. And I have even shut out my spouse from this, because I don't want to talk to anyone about this. But I'm letting you know because I want you to know that I'm sure I haven't ever measured my EQ before, but I know that this has gone downhill. And so, considering that she was self-admittedly talking about understanding that she's not the same person, or that she has deteriorated in her behaviors because she has so much of unresolved grief, that she's angry with the world for having taken away her parents from her life, and that her life's never going to be the same again. That she thinks that she sacrificed her personal life for what it is that she's basically dealing with, or is not even dealing with enough. I obviously immediately asked her, how has your manager reacted to this? Right? And I want you to take to the chat if you have any ideas of how do you think the managers reacted to this. Can't be that he doesn't know that you have yelling sessions with the team. Can't be that he doesn't know that you've changed, or you've become different, or you're sad, or you're withdrawn, or you don't participate in any form of celebration, or whatever that might really be, that you hide away in a job. And Ambut says it depends on the manager's EQ. And, you're bang on right that, in 9 out of 10 cases, and in her case, it was absolutely the 9 out of 10, which is that the manager is interested in the work that you produce and not in how you're feeling. And so she said, as long as I'm coming in every day and I'm producing what it is that I'm supposed to be producing, which we are, he's okay. I asked whether did anybody in HR notice, or somebody escalated something somewhere else, because if your team's experiencing this, surely they're escalating it somewhere. And she said, I don't know who they escalated to or whether they do at all, but no one from HR or any other place has spoken to me, neither my boss and neither anyone else. So I'm saying here is somebody who's a senior person. She's in the organization for several years. Surely you have relationships in an organization where you've been there for a very long period of time. She's clearly depressed, needs grief management support, and she basically is self-admittedly aware that she is on a short fuse at most times, very irritated, upset with her life for the personal loss, and there's nobody intervening. They have data there. So oftentimes when people experience negative emotions, you often don't have, if they've changed their behaviors or they change or behaving strangely, you may not have the data. In this case, you do have the data. They all know that she's lost her parents in a short period of time. So, and now this organization is a large wellness program, employee wellness program. But we don't use it, which is the whole challenge. That there might be a lot of this machinery available, but you just don't. Even to use that machinery, you need compassion. Yeah, and so I'm giving you this as an example to be able to tell you that even when there is need to be rescued, there are people who don't step in to be able to do this. And there are visible symbols of change. Why would you not intervene? Because surely in everything that's going on with this leader for the last so many months, there is clear lack of productivity in the context of her team because of her behavior. And I'm saying, even if you care for the productivity, if that's your reason why you believe you come to work every day, why would you not want to intervene if that's the business case? That my business case for wanting my employees, okay, to be able to have safe spaces, to be able to express, to be able to, have support, have empathy for what it is that they're experiencing. I'm concerned because if we don't do this, we're going to have serious ramifications in terms of productivity. So my business case is basically attraction, retention, outcome, remaining high performing. None of these outcomes are going to be possible. Business outcomes or the cultural outcomes that organizations are looking for, particularly in an environment where in the 21st century, your culture is your differentiator and not your strategy. And so, especially in environments like this, there's just so much from a business case perspective on why organizations should be interested in being able to build environments of trust, of compassion, of people who are interested, leaders who are interested, especially after the turmoil that we've experienced with one of the largest health crises in the world. There is you have the financial meltdown and you have the global health crisis as the two most stellar events that have been experienced across the world. And the closest one is the health crisis. And I don't know about you, but I truly believe that would be a game changer in being able to bring in sort of sustainable change in the sense of having greater human compassion, becoming more human centric, being more interested in being able to recognize the human side of enterprise. So I want to talk about, the gradation or the spectrum of empathy. Yeah, pity, sympathy, empathy, compassion. And here I'm going to try and use a bit of, Sanskrit for us to be able to make meaning in terms of what we really understand and what we really express. So feeling pity for someone, which is acknowledging that someone may be suffering, right? And a lot of people think this is compassion. And so I'm just trying to, sorry, they believe this is empathy and it's not. So I'm just trying to clarify that because I acknowledge, oh, that must be really sad. Oh, did they slip and fall? Oh, that's really sad. You know what I mean? So you have a little bit of pity for people, and pity may not convert into action. Pity may just mean that I feel bad for people. I mean, yeah, sure, I have the pity muscle. Sympathy, I care about your suffering. You know what I mean? I really care, I mean, you've lost someone, or there's been something major that's happened. Let's say, your child didn't make it through to a big school that he was applying for. It's like, yeah, I mean, I get that. You know what I mean? Really sad to be not get something that you really desire or aspire for. So I care about your suffering. Empathy, I feel your suffering. You know what I mean? I feel exactly what it is that you're talking about. I can be in your shoes. I get that. And compassion means I want to intervene to be able to help you, because I get it and I want to intervene. I get that, but I want to intervene because I'm going to try and see what it is that I can really do. And for all those on the audience who are coaching leaders, particularly, or would-be leaders or high potential people, leaders are the last post for empathy and the last post for compassion or social responsibility in an organization. And oftentimes, when people who are junior try approaching very senior people by asking them for time or whatever it might be, they're all constantly, to Anu's point, everyone just seems to be very significantly busy. And so, I'm too busy, I'm busy. So you ask the A, what does that person want? Say, I don't know, she wants to talk to you about her ratings. So please just send her to HR. right? I mean, please don't put me through this. I didn't work with her directly. I don't know what it is that she really wants. And interestingly, I did some, some kind of back of the envelope research to understand through our discoveries for various organizations that junior employees or mid-level employees reach out to the topmost leadership for what? So when they need help, what is it that they're actually needing help for? So sometimes it's a career conversation that they want to have with somebody more senior with the permission of their manager, or even sometimes without the permission of their manager. But most often they're reaching out to these people because they're not satisfied that their performance rating has been given to them fairly. And so they want to have a conversation with someone who will consider this to change it, or consider them for a promotion which they believe they were due for, which they've not been nominated for, not been recommended for, and so on. So it seems to be performance and career related conversation. Now, here's the perspective most leaders have shared with me, which is that I can't evaluate this person because this person didn't work directly with me. I don't want to undermine the evaluation of her immediate manager. And so I don't want to spend time doing something which I can't help or I can't do anything with. So, and I don't want to start doing it because I'll have a long line outside my door with other people asking for the same help. So I'm sorry, I tell my EA, tell this person that she should go to HR or talk to somebody else. And so now this is the worst act of demonstrating low empathy and basically disacknowledging that you are the person who can offer compassion in this situation. And whoever said it's easy to be a leader, whoever said it's easy to be a leader, if you can't manage your time to be able to manage your people, then you're not a leader. So the point here is, what can you do? And this has been a point on through my EQ work that I do within organizations, which is what should you be doing if someone came in and asked you for this help? Because remember, this person has passed many posts before coming to you, has crossed many posts before deciding to come to you. Now, if they've come to you, what you need to do, and what is your act of compassion when you're trying to help, is you tell them that the outcome, look, hi, I'm delighted to meet you. Now, please do come in. I know what your challenge is, but I want to hear it in your words. But before we start the conversation, I want you to know that my purpose of meeting you here today is not to change your rating. My purpose of meeting you today is because I want to know what has caused you to feel so distressed with your rating that has made you come out and reach out to me. So I'm interested in hearing that. What has caused you this anguish? And after we've heard that, I'm going to be able to see whether there is an opportunity to be able to intervene. But you do understand you didn't work directly with me, so I don't have a point of view on your evaluation. And also that if I say that you come meet me and I can change your rating, this would hold true for everyone else who works in this department, right? So I can't do this for everyone. So you do understand that. Now, please go ahead and tell me, what is causing you anguish. And so what have you done now is you've actually invested in being able to demonstrate the empathy to want to be able to listen. Now, how can you actually help? And the help may not necessarily be what the individual is looking for, which is change my rating. The help could be that because I listen to you, I now understand what are the systemic challenges with this process inside the organization. What is not working here because of which people feel anguished like this? Is there a communication challenge on how it is that we've told people our process works? Is there an opportunity for this lady's manager to be coached by me? Yeah, so basically, I'm doing this because I have compassion for everyone in the process, and I want to be able to do right unto them. And if as an outcome of this, it also means that we can do something for the lady, we'll try and see what it is that we can do, basically being as fair as we can to everyone in the situation. But to say I don't have the time and please go to somebody else who can't help you, that is not a demonstration of either empathy or compassion. So intervening to help, we're basically the last post. A lot of people you may be coaching need to understand that they are the last post for people within the organization. And when we don't accept to being the last post for people, we're just not doing our leadership work. This should explain why people believe that they work in toxic work environments and so on. Now, let me tell you a bit more about the spectrum of sympathy, empathy, and compassion, which is for us to be able to understand that you can have people who experience sympathy, but they may not have empathy. And they may have sympathy and empathy, but they may not have compassion, right? Because the circuits for all three are different. Now, let me share the circuits in the brain is what I mean. The circuits in the brain for all three are different. And so let me try and share a story with you, right? And so this is a social experiment, but this was done with a very large B school in the US. which is, in one of their courses, they were shown CCTV camera footage from a busy street in Manhattan. Right? So these are people who are, how many of you have been to New York or have been to other busy cities in the world where you'll see people walk really, really fast, because it's like the commercial space in the city. Everyone's heading to work somewhere, high level of significance to get there fast, and everybody's walking really fast. So imagine a street like that, where everybody's walking up and down the street and heading somewhere, obviously to their offices to work. Now, in the midst of this very busy street, the CCTV camera captures a man who's bent over, because it looks like in the image, it looks like he has deep stomachache, right? And he's kind of bent over like this for a bit. All right, everyone's walking past him. All right, in some time he's bent over completely, and in the next few minutes he sits down in the middle of that street. Okay, so this is the sidewalk, obviously, but he's sitting in the middle of that because he's unable to even stand anymore. Now, eventually, he tries pulling himself out to be able to go to the corner, because he's right in the middle of the street. But no one's stopping. Everyone's walking up and down. All very significantly busy and getting to someplace important. Suddenly, there is a person on the other side of the road who spots this person and seems to walk over and comes over to him and helps him to be able to sit down properly, because he's dragged himself to the corner of the road, gets him to kind of sit down. And you can't hear what they're saying, but he's talking to him with an arm around him, leaves, goes, gets a bottle of water, gives him the bottle of water, sits with him for a bit more, and then goes, gets a cab, flags off a cab, pushes this man up to his feet, they drag along to the cab. He puts him inside the cab and says bye to him. The cab goes away and this man walks off. So now here's the question for the students, right? So what do you think happened here in this clipping, right? They said, oh, there's a man who's obviously sick. I said, all right, what else did you observe? I said, let nobody stop. Nobody looked at him, or, he seemed to be just okay. And what else? And what else did you think about? So there's a bit of prodded, perspective building there on the fact that no one seemed to really care, right? And so what else did you notice? So we did see a caring man from the other side, and he seemed to come across, and he seemed to have the time perhaps to be able to sit down there and talk to him. And when I got him a bottle of water, settled him down, then got him a cab, he helped him. There's somebody who came and helped him. Okay, great. And so what do you think is going on in the minds of these people who are walking up and down, who didn't notice, or, this guy was not seen despite being unwell and visibly unwell on a very busy street? And so we wanted to talk about what kind of a society we are becoming in our hurry and our, sort of self-significance about becoming human doings with every passing day, at the cost of continuing to become human beings. So, think about this. What kind of society are we becoming? How can we get more of this good Samaritan who also needed to get somewhere, but found the time from across the road to cross the road and help this person to be able to get into a cab and perhaps go and get some help? So, this was supposed to be a group discussion, and so all of them were divided in groups, and they're supposed to talk about, what are their observations? What can you do to be able to fix this? What are the implications for this as a society? All of that. And so they're given an hour to be able to discuss, and then they were told, okay, when you're finished, all of you, can you just come over to building number 3, and your presentation is going to be there. There are more people joining, and we'd love to know your perspective on what you just saw. And so all of them basically use an hour, they talk together, they discuss what they need to, whatever else, talk about building a environment in a society that is more sort of empathetic, more sympathetic, and so on, and then move to crossing over to the other building, because they need to go and make a presentation. Now, en route to the other building is a man that they've placed who's doing exactly what happened in this film, which is he's bent over, with pain in his stomach. And in some time, he sat down because he can't move anymore. And what do you think happened? All the students walked past him, with great degree of significance to get to the other building, because they needed to make a presentation. And then they got to that building and then made a presentation on the Good Samaritan, the man who's a Good Samaritan. So they made a presentation on the Good Samaritan. So the point I'm making here is your ability to understand and your ability to be able to do something about what you understand are different circuits. So you may experience sympathy for people, which in Sanskrit is sahanubhuti. It's sahanubhuti, which means I understand your pain, right? I feel, I understand your pain, and I basically feel sad for you. Yeah, I feel sad for your pain. The second one, which we're basically talking about, is empathy. And empathy is sammanubhuti in Sanskrit. Sammanubhuti means I feel like you in your shoes. So I understand what you feel in your shoes. So if you've lost somebody dear, I understand what it means to be in your shoes. If you lost a job, I understand what it might feel to be in your shoes. I understand, I empathize with your situation. But because I have sympathy, or because I have empathy, I may not have compassion. Compassion is karuna in Sanskrit. Yeah, and karuna is what we ask for from the Lord, which is, Lord, step in to help me. I mean, do something to help me. So karuna, or compassion, has the status of someone who is godlike, who can step in to be able to truly help people. And that the expectation of karuna within the workplace is anyone who's your manager or your leader. And so to not have someone show karuna in the workplace is a huge loss. To not experience karuna in your everyday experience of being of meeting people and working together with people is a significant loss of being able to create the organization that cares. And so we will come to the part on, and Naval Day has his hand up, and Naval, I'll come to you in a minute. I'll just find the space and come back to you. The piece on karuna is not a soft skill. So I want you to know that it is actually, to the point that Anu was making earlier, that organizations that are compassionate believe in doing right to the other, which means you intervene to do right to the other. What I explained when I talked about social responsibility in an organization, which is someone's come to you saying, I feel disgruntled with something, is that you at least hear them, right? And when you hear them, you're going to get ideas on how you can manifest karuna. And so if you don't even hear them, which really means that listening really, and organizations accentuate listening for innovation. And I'm saying listening for compassion. And if you think deeply, compassion is a prerequisite for innovation. So you actually cannot get innovation within an organization that does not have compassion. Whether that compassion is for your customer, the compassion is for your value chain, your compassion for how it is that you're going to intervene to be able to make this better. How are you going to intervene to alleviate human pain? How are you going to intervene to make lives better for other people? And if you do not indeed intervene, I'm wondering what else you do as a leader. And so that intervening, the courage to be able to intervene is extremely, extremely important. We can't have, and I think for generations, we've tolerated people in leadership positions who experience low psychological safety themselves. And so how do you create an environment where you can get people to do best what they do best, unless you're basically able to create an environment where you're role modeling the courage of compassion? So the Good Samaritan is something I want you to think about, because, our assumption that someone who shows sympathy has empathy, or that someone who shows empathy has compassion, is a misnomer. It is not true. Yeah, there are three different circuits. And so you can have someone who looks like they're sympathetic, but who will not intervene to help others. And the intervene to help others is often intervene to help self. What I mean by that is, in the instance of the manager who intervenes to be able to listen to somebody who's dissatisfied with their performance ratings, you're actually intervening also to improve the process of the system so that you have better leadership within the organization that actually understands and cares. So often help outwards is help inwards. And we must recognize that as coaches. I mean, you possibly already had some great high point experiences where when you're coaching people, the conversation is to yourself. And it's very powerful. Even while you're coaching, you're telling somebody else something, you're actually telling yourself that. And it's so powerful, because it's a message to yourself that, physician, heal thyself. Yeah, do not be the physician as the coach if we are not constantly healing ourselves in these conversations. And so it's very powerful even for leaders who step in to be compassionate, because when they step out to be compassionate on behalf of someone, they end up being compassionate to the environment and to themselves. So that's the good Samaritan. Before the reflection activity, wanted to take Nawal's question. Nawal Day, you had your hand up. Do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Surya. It was a very, very insightful session as such. So I had three things to ask you across. A is when generally in our corporate terms, we today see people tend to use this word empathy like a very loosely used word. Like I completely feel you. Even in the training sessions, it is being taught be empathetic. So what is empathy? Just go and tell that I hear you, I understand you, although it's that person might not be in that shoe ever in his life.
Yeah.
So how do you differentiate that empathy versus the actual empathy where they actually mean it? I mean, it's stemming out from their own experience as well, versus the sympathy part. So it more or less covers sympathy as well.
Yeah.
There was I'm sure you would have seen that clip of a small guy lead India, whereupon the tree trunk is laid on the ground and the child walks and in spite of all those people. So do we see compassion over there? Do we see empathy over there? A bit of spotlight on that as well. And
Yeah.
C is like when we are talking of compassion, I mean, generally in our childhoods, when our school report cards were generally given to us, we've been instructed, get the signature of your parents. Now, parent is both dad and mom both, but generally most of the kids run towards their mother if the grades are not so good. So the whole reason when asked upon why you run, so is it out of compassion that mother is showing, that's why the kids are running towards them, or it's something else you'd like to vocalize across? So on those three fronts, quick share.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to try and make this really quick in the interest of not missing but good, interesting questions you have. So you're asking about those who are paying lip service to empathy versus actually demonstrating empathy. I think you can make these people out. And, unfortunately, we have created a vocabulary in the corporate world, which now everyone has learned. And because you learn, that's why I was trying to make the distinction that because you know the vocabulary doesn't mean that you're empathetic. People who work closest to you know whether you truly do have the empathy or you don't, because they can absolutely make out whether you have. For example, when you make a mistake, and you have very little time to be able to fix it. Yeah, it's a very good sort of a test for whether the leader really truly does have empathy for that situation, and will basically, and how much will the leader step in. A lot of leaders, when there's something like that, they say, now just go and fix it. I want it in 10 minutes. I don't care what you do. And that's not how you deal with it when you're actually an empathetic person, because you understand that there is something that seems to have gone wrong here. We will do that correction when we come to it. Now we don't have the time, so let's basically put all our heads together to be able to fix it. So at that point, you have empathy for the person who's made the mistake, right? And when you intervene to say, let's do what we need to do to fix it, you're now showing compassion to be able to actually do what's needed to be done in the moment. So having compassion for somebody who lost, having compassion for somebody who's made a mistake, having compassion will mean that I have the empathy to know what that must be feeling like for you, instead of damning you and blaming you and the rest of that. So, but intervening to help. And normally you will find that those who are empathetic in the situation will not leave people with the problem. They'll step in to ask, what do you need from me so that we can fix this together? To your point on, the little boy stepping in to be able to help with the uprooted tree and the rest of that, that is clearly compassion. Because in action, because he's actually doing something about it, instead of just standing around feeling bad for the tree or feeling bad for the situation, you're actually stepping in, and because he's trying to do it, everybody else comes in to be able to help, which is the power of compassion, especially with a leader. And leader is anyone who's basically rising up with authenticity to intervene. So whoever is doing that, more people get inspired to be able to do it alongside, as compared to the leader who is upset, angry, bawling, shouting, is themselves basically demonstrating high inflexibility, has low stress tolerance abilities themselves. All this is what oftentimes gets demonstrated, rather than the ability to be able to take charge with wisdom. So I will tell you a few more stories as we go along, where this might get expanded even further. To your point on when you don't do well, okay, or you feel disappointed in yourself, yeah, as a child, yeah, why do you reach out to your mother rather than your father. And this could simply be that, whichever parent shows unconditional love, right, is the one that you want to go to, because you believe that you will not be judged for failing or judged for not having done well, whereas your dad is going to sit you down and give you peace of his mind on how it is that you got to be able to take this seriously. This is going to be very important for your career. This is going to be something that is going to be building blocks for you to do well in the future, that you're showing irresponsibility as a child when you're not focusing enough to be able to, or not paying enough attention to your studies. So now, in between the two, I would call the dad's behavior compassion, and I would show, and compassion in the sense if he's also then trying to find solutions for the child together. And I would find the mother's behavior as unconditional love. And so you normally, in a situation like this, you do know your expectation of sympathy and empathy is with the mother. And so you may reach out, for the mother. I have experienced, with both the kids I've raised, that they would reach out, equally to me or to my husband. I mean, he's highly, highly compassionate, but very, very sympathetic and unconditional in the loving, but will not close the conversation without intervening. So, when you draw lines with your children, when you tell them that this is, they smell the coffee, when you tell them that you got to be able to change this because it's better, it's in your interest, you're actually not just demonstrating love, you're demonstrating compassion, which is, I understand, but I want to intervene to be able to help. But I will draw this line with you. I will let you know where to get off. And that's the point that we were making when we're talking about whether compassion gets seen as a soft behavior in the workplace. You'll see the most compassionate managers are people who care enough to intervene, to let you know what it is that you're doing with yourself and your opportunities, which are not serving you well. And they will have that tough conversation with you. So people with high compassion have the tough conversations. They draw the line with people. They will not just leave you there, but they will not just leave you there. They will work with you for you to be able to cross over to the other side. And I think that's when it completes the story on compassion. So you're all coaches, and I'm interested to do a quick activity with all of you. Even while I'm going to ask Sumit to give me a time check, right? So reflection activity, everyone, take to the chat and answer these 3 questions for me. So what does compassion mean to me, which means to you? What does compassion mean to me? Answer that question, and you can use your own words. Yeah, it doesn't have to be, there's no dictionary definition and so on that you need to use. Just what does it really mean to me? In terms of an action, okay, in terms of doing something, what do you expect people to do when they have compassion? So what is it to you? How will you spot it? So take to our chat and make sure that we have, we have some of you answering this question, please. For yourself, use your own verbiage. I want you to use your own verbiage to say, what does compassion really mean to me? All right, I've already got a few. Walk the talk, being considerate, in action, the other person feels helped, being not judgmental, lessen the pain in another being. Compassion means how to handle if compassion is taken for granted by the team. Okay, that's a question, and we'll come to that. Authentic, feel the act according to the need, act uniquely for each situation and person. Genuine involvement through action, person's current challenge or situation, listening to the other, understanding their point of view, and try to help if you can. Okay, great. Trying to be considerate. Demonstrate action to help. Yeah, so the action is the key one. In the context of your social relationships, it's basically social responsibility, if you want to call it that, which is stepping in to be able to help. Next question: why do we want to build compassion in our coaches? Yeah, your clients. Why do you want to build compassion in them? It's important to think this through. On why do you think you want to build compassion in them, and what do you expect them to do as a result of becoming more compassionate? Bharati Menon has a good description for compassion. I like it. Compassion actually means listening to people, see how we can help them to make them feel better through action, right? So sometimes it's about making them feel better, and sometimes it's about making them aware, making them awake, making them, aware, making them, sort of understand what they need to do. So it's a lot of making people rise to their opportunities, inspiring action out of people. It's a lot of all of that as well. And you do that constantly as a coach. Why do we want to build compassion? To build rapport, make them open up, create psychological safety. Yeah, why do we want to build compassion in our coaches? Why do you want the coachee to become compassionate? And the reason why you should want your coachee to become a compassionate, other than wanting this person to win, in their personal relationships, win in their uh, professional relationships, become the leaders that they ought to really be. Because what else is the act of leadership other than compassion? Yeah, whether in business, whether with people, what else is the act of leadership other than compassion? And I'm wondering about how you can be a leader if you're not compassionate. You know what I mean? Because being compassionate means that you are actually having the wisdom to be able to understand problems and solve them, intervene to solve them in a manner that is fair to everyone. It means you have the ability to be able to comprehend and understand, the wisdom to understand what exactly is the problem, so that you're able to intervene and solve it in a manner that is fair to everyone. Right? And that is, it sounds easy, and it's actually a lot of work. Compassion is important for coaches. Yeah, I've got something more here. Some compassion is important for coaches, for coaching. In compassion and coaching creates safe human space where real growth, honest reflections and transformations can happen. I agree with that. Compassion can help us challenge with care for growth. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And why do you want your coachee to have compassion is actually the question. Yeah, and it's because that's the only way to win in the 21st century. The 21st century, especially the fifth industrial revolution, belongs to how it is that you can integrate machines with people. And if you do not have, as a leader, whoever you're coaching, does not have this ability, they will always fall short of being able to win in the workplace, because this is their actual winning card. This is an actual differentiator. And my third question, and we'll come back to this, is how can I become more compassionate as a coach? How can I become more compassionate as a coach? How can you become more compassionate as a coach? Do you have any ideas of what you want to do to show more compassion in the way in which you coach people? And this really means being able to draw the line, having the tough conversations with your coaches. Yeah, letting them know, that letting them know that this is not compassionate, that how you're feeling or what you're saying is not fair to people. And that, you need to be able to recount or reflect on what it is that you've contributed, how it is that you've contributed to this situation, so that you can step in to undo it. Right? So I have a coachee who's been with me for a very long period of time, and he's extremely successful. And a lot of the decisions he took to become an entrepreneur came out of a lot of our coaching conversations. And recently he mentioned to me that, I would challenge Dr. Banerjee, and I want to talk to you about the fact, and he never actually brought in the past in such great detail his personal life. And he says that, with all the success that I've experienced, what I find I'm left with right now is I feel very accomplished, very, very accomplished professionally, because it's just I've gone to another league altogether in the work that I'm doing. But I find a huge distance with my wife, and I really believe that she has not been able to keep growth with me, keep pace with me. We've really lost the sort of the excitement of our marriage. Yeah, all the excitement of being married or having a relationship together has just run out. And I don't know how I'm left feeling like that, but I feel very disinterested in my marriage. So now, here is your opportunity to be able to show compassion. And how would you show compassion to someone who believes that they've outgrown their wives because they've succeeded? And he said, when both of us were employees and working for different companies, I had a lot of mutual requests, mutual respect. But in the current environment, after I've climbed the ladder and gone to another level, I don't feel the same for this person. And I think, first of all, it's such an amazing admission. You know what I mean? You start with the admission, and then you work forward from there. And the idea is that you need, as a coach in a dilemma like this, you need, as a coach, to have compassion for how he's feeling, right? And to not damn him or judge him because he's feeling the way he is, but to bring him to reflections on how we got there and how it is that we can get to a better place with our spouse. So compassion is your operative manifestation as a coach. Right? When you don't judge the problem and you intervene you still remain very supportive of your coachee, and I'm sure you're already doing that. But you're guiding the coachee to be more compassionate to himself and to his spouse in the situation in which he finds himself. which will mean tough conversations around, that I have allowed my success to take me to a point where I believe I'm too good for other people. Right? I have taken my success to a point where I don't value people who've been with me through the entire journey. I feel sorry that I have not taken along the person who's supposed to be my life partner to the point where I believe I reached greater heights. And I have to look at how I can bring her to those levels as well, so that I can work together with her to make that happen, rather than judge her for remaining where it is that I believe she's left herself. So compassion is all operative in a coaching mechanism. So how can I become more compassionate as a coach is always what it is that is required in the context of being able to deliver ahas to people through their coaching conversations. So this conversation is incomplete without talking about EQ and social intelligence. Both of them are so central to this entire journey of being able to basically, bring in and value compassion in the workplace. I don't know how many of you are involved with emotional intelligence work, but if you are, then I'm sure you will resonate with what I have to say here. For the others, please take notes so that you can build this into valuable, meaningful coaching conversations with people. The current times of flux that a lot of you are also alluding to require mostly for leaders to succeed in this environment by building very strong EQ muscles. And so I'm going to describe EQ to you so that for those coming in late, emotional intelligence is your ability to read your own emotions and the emotions of others so that you may continuously create a climate for action. Can I read my own emotions? Do I understand whether I'm feeling sad, mad, glad, bad, irritated, frustrated? What is it that I'm feeling? And how is this other person feeling when I'm talking to them? How am I landing on this other person? Reading people and reading rooms is right at the center of winning in the 21st century. You will not be able to actually survive if you're not going to be able to do this quickly. And what's this definition? I understand my emotions and I also understand yours. And what's the value of understanding how you're feeling is I can change how I'm saying something. I can change my tonality. I can change the content and say it differently so that I may arrive at a space of harmony with you. And so the outcome of relationship building, or the orientation for care and relationship building, comes from a strong orientation for harmony in relationships. If we do not have an orientation for harmony in relationships, it's very difficult to be the compassionate leader. And so these are building blocks for compassion. Do I have an orientation towards harmony in relationships, or do I like the dissent, or do I like the fact that we have a one-upmanship going with each other, and I like that, and you know what I mean, and I love this, and then I came out triumphant from that meeting because I think I got the better of you. So the wisdom in not having to do this is right at the center of being able to show or demonstrate compassion to another person, which is I'm interested in harmony. I have an orientation to harmony. And I want to be able to call out to all of you here that it is very misleading to believe that everyone has this orientation to harmony. They don't. You got to bring them to a point of wanting orientation, this orientation of harmony in relationship. Social intelligence is your ability to be able to build rapport and build rapport quickly and evoke trust in people quickly across a wide diversity of people, which means you can get along with the mail boy, you can get along with the chai wala, you can get along with somebody who's in a kirana dukan, you can get along with in a grocery shop, you can get along with somebody who's at the government, who can get along with the police, you can get along with the panchayat head, you can get along with the tehsildar, you can get along with the minister, you can get along with the board, you can get along with the banker, you can get along with the investor. You have a wide spectrum of people you can get along with. And so this dexterity in collective societies like ours, which are very congested, it's very uncommon that you don't already know this. A lot of people don't bring this to work. And so their ability to be able to shift style, change style, influence, no matter who is in front of them, is extremely low. And it's also not uncommon increasingly to just stay in their bastions into their offices and not interact with the other people because they, I don't know, are not good enough or are not fit enough for conversations. There is no other way to do this. Organizations are predisposed to becoming egalitarian, and especially with Gen Z and the other generations coming in, we do not have a predisposition to building an egalitarian organization. It's going to be extremely difficult for any leader to succeed and survive. And so social intelligence is right at the center of winning in the This is how we build cultures which become differentiators. And so I want to be able to get you to be able to focus on both these in your journey of wanting to be able to build compassionate leaders and compassionate organizations. You know, the conversation on EQ and SQ is incomplete if we do not talk about emotional agility. And emotional agility just simply means that you have the ability, and whether I'm talking about the coaches that you're working with right now, but you will identify with it because you're as human as they are, which is when there's constant uncertainty, flux, and for example, how you felt during the pandemic, which was very helpless, frustrated, sort of unhappy, sad, so we're constantly feeling emotion. And for people who are in environments, business environments, where they need to respond quickly to the environment, respond to the problem, respond to what may have happened, it is imperative for them to basically have the emotional agility to acknowledge what they're feeling in the moment, but to start moving towards what they ought to be feeling in the moment. What I mean by that is, let's say there's something that's gone awfully wrong and it's a very important client, and this is a very senior leader that you're trying to coach. It's not uncommon, no matter how senior you might be, that you feel and experience extreme fear as the first reaction to what the situation is. But you actually need to be the person who is basically courageous enough to tell people, all right, we're going to fix it, guys, come on. So that is the action expected. But what I'm actually experiencing is fear, disappointment, shame, all kinds of things because of what has gone wrong so dramatically. But you're first experiencing fear. And now I'm experiencing fear. But what my team's looking for is for me to be in charge, to show up as the leader, the person who's courageous, who's here to be able to fix it. Now, I'm here to tell you that both those emotions can exist simultaneously, which means you choose what you want to show up as in the moment, whether as accountable, as responsible, as loving, as caring. What do you want to show up as in the moment, right? You can feel an emotion which is quite contrary to that. And if you show up and you try and attempt to be able to move towards this emotion, which is actually required in the moment, that agility is your emotional maturity, which means you understand that what's required here in the moment right now is for me to be courageous. What am I actually experiencing? Fear. And so courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is fear in motion. Courage is fear in motion, which means I'm experiencing fear, but I'm still moving towards being able to become courageous. And I'm not faking it. I'm not faking it. This is a value which I uphold. And it's contrary to how I'm feeling right now. And I recognize that, and I have the ability to be able to move towards being able to demonstrate courage, if that's what is required in the moment. Show love, if that's what's required in the moment. To show care, if that's what's required in the moment. To show forgiveness, when that's what's required in the moment. And so emotional agility is right at the center of winning in these times. And this is a very important space. If you want to teach people compassion, you're not going to be able to get there without being able to deal with the whole space of emotional agility, which means I recognize your negative emotion, but you're a leader and you need to show up as, and you choose the value that you want to show up as, right? And there can be a whole host of values that we're talking about here, right? And I'm going to call out some of these so that you can understand these sort of better. Yeah, you could want to show up as reliable. You can want to show up as cooperative. You can want to show up as adventurous in the moment. You may want to show up as accountable in the moment. You want to show up as efficient in the moment. You want to show up as brave in the moment. You want to show up as responsible in the moment. You want to show up as accurate in the moment. You want to show up as someone who you can trust in the moment. You want to show up as somebody who's listening to you in the moment. You want to show up as someone who's sensitive in the moment. You want to show up as someone who is challenging you in the moment. And I'm saying you choose that, even if the emotions that you're experiencing could be quite different. So it is absolutely possible for people to experience growth with mistakes, anxiety with confidence, accountability with self-forgiveness, learning with unlearning. And like I said, courage with fear. And so understanding these coexisting emotions is a very significant part of what it is that we're trying to basically talk about here today. In this segment, this is basically a part where I know I've crossed the time, and but I don't want to leave you. And with Anne's permission, if it's all right for me to take 5 minutes more, I want to be able to share 2 stories.
Yes,
right?
of course.
Yeah, I want to share 2 stories. And this is to kind of give you a workplace context, and particularly for those who are coaches on the call, and you may have worked for a short period of time before you took to coaching, and also for the others to be able to get a sense on real life opportunities for showing compassion. So how does someone you're coaching for compassion really manifest compassion in the workplace? And my chart here, my image here on the screen is simply talking about the the need for people to generally criticize. So what do people really experience in the workplace? It's not a very empathetic or compassionate situation for most people, especially in leadership positions. People very quick to be able to criticize, very quick to be able to gossip about things that they don't quite understand, which have not been communicated well, particularly by the leader. Very few were interested in getting involved to solve the problem because most of them believe they didn't create it. Very few to be able to encourage, to be able to say, all right, go for it, let's do this. Very few to intervene to help. And this is one equation we've got to change in a hurry within the workplace. And the game changer is the leader, right? And he kind of emulates this, he role models this, and he can actually get more people to be able to get involved, to encourage, to be able to help, because you're constantly going to have a lot of uncertainty and flux in the workplace that truly actually is a test of compassion in these times. So let me give you two stories so that you kind of get a sense on how do leaders manifest and have opportunities to manifest compassion in the workplace. There's so many, but I'm going to share two stories with you, and then we'll try and see whether we can close this out, answer a few questions if required, and then maybe hand over to the next set of speakers who are also perhaps waiting to be able to get started. So first story I want to share with you is, I don't know how many of you remember, there was a time where you had the volcanic ashes, because of which all the flights came to a standstill. And I was in the US at that time trying to hire from some of the schools like Stanford and Harvard and whatnot for our organization. And we had this situation once. I was back in New York and I wasn't able to take my flight back. So one night, late night, and I was working for a large Indian conglomerate at that time. I get a call late in the night, and this is obviously because of the time difference. And I answer the phone, and all I can hear is sobs on the other side. Right, I can tell you that you're in a foreign country alone, and you get somebody calling you up with sobs on the other side. It's very scary. So I didn't even know who was sobbing, and I said I took the number because it seemed like a company number. And so here's somebody who was sobbing away to glory, and then she identified herself, and she said that, I'm sorry, I'm calling you. I know this is possibly night for you. I said, yeah, well, it's past midnight actually, but tell me what's going on. And she said, I am in a terrible situation. I need your help. And then she tells me that there is an investigation against her in the organization for data theft. All right, and that this, and I knew her. She wasn't working directly with me. I knew her, and I wouldn't even remotely ever connect someone like that with any form of lack of integrity or leave aside data theft. So she said, here's what had happened, that because there had been challenges within the organization where two employees who'd left had actually basically, taken away blueprints of one of our refineries. And this came to their knowledge, and there was police investigation and all of that. And to make an example out of this, which is common in organizations, they had them arrested by the police, and there had been something like that had happened while I was not there. And now they were pulling out the stoppers, on everything to be able to see, let's take a look at all the data in terms of who has transferred data from their Gmail accounts to people and so on and so forth. So, let's kind of do a really clean up at the back, you prevent any form of documents being moving off to your personal IDs and so on. And while they were doing that overhaul, they figured that she had basically taken something called the Form 2A, which really had all the data of all the employees for that business. She had basically got somebody to send it from her company email ID to a Gmail ID, right? It has salary data, it has everything else. So actually, if you just pick it up, you can give it to competition, you know what I mean? And they'll know everything that is happening, including all your employees. So obviously, this huge investigation, or I don't know what they did. And then they called her in, and they told her, look, coincidentally, she had resigned already. She was looking to go, so this was her notice period. They found that even more suspicious, which is that she's taken all this data and now she's resigned and she's moving on. But they were very keen to know, where are you moving on to? Who's your new employer? And the rest of that. And they said that as a result, since she's already resigned, otherwise they'd have asked her to resign, they have decided to be able to penalize her by not giving her her full and final settlement, and by not depriving her of her bonus. So she was stunned, first of all, with the accusation. This is a terrible reputation with which you can move to a new employer. And also, she was explaining it away by saying that her mother was extremely unwell in a hospital. And because she was heading compensation and benefits, she needed to complete some work. And so basically, she'd asked for this in her personal ID because she was trying to help the organization by working on it. And then there was a trace where she sent it back to her email ID. So the worked up sheet. She worked on a sheet and she sent it back. Now, they refused to accept any logic. They said, look, I mean, for them, I think it looked like they had found the second candidate who'd done this in the organization. And it also seemed easy to be able to basically, crucify her, if you want to call her that, because she was also leaving the organization. And now her boss, who was called in, said, well, I don't know when she did this because she never asked me for permission. And so had absolutely no backing from the manager who she'd worked with for 6 years. And now her crying was coming from the fact that some of her family members had asked for meetings and come and met people in the workplace and made matters even worse by saying we'll take a legal action against the company for blaming her and she's not done anything and so on and so forth. So it had gone really bad, right? So I told her, look, I'm stuck in the US because of the volcanic ashes, but I can get a flight out next week and you'll have to just put your head down and continue serving your notice. And I'll come in and I'll try and figure what this is about. Okay. But I want you to stay calm and I want you to not get hassled about what implications and what all could happen. I am just going by the fact that you have made this effort to reach me because you have not done this. And she said, yes, I have absolutely. I did it to complete my work. And I did it to her point. She said that the leader, her manager, knew that she was going to be doing it in the hospital and so on. So anyway, so I stepped in. I came in on the Monday, and there was like a lot of fire and a lot of drama around this going on. I went around to go and meet the committee which made this decision. I went around to be able to talk to her manager to try and understand what exactly had happened. We spent some time with her to be able to understand what's really happened. And so we managed to be able to figure the trace, which is it had gone to her and then it was sent back with a rework sheet, which we picked up and created as evidence for the fact that she had worked on something and sent it back. She was also interestingly joining a bank, which had nothing to do with the current organization. So this sheet would be of no use to her next employers and so on. So we reconvened without her, presented the data that these people had not bothered to be able to gather, and then basically brought in one or two other directors to be able to join in, because this was so important, because how we behaved with her, everyone was watching us really closely, and how we treated her would define how they would see us as leaders. And I think it missed many people that's how this would be seen. It was so defining for being able to create a culture that is reasonable, a culture that is wise, and a culture that is graceful. And so that actually are the additional last posts that a leader is known for. And so long story short, we basically managed to be able to turn back the decision and get her basically reinstated in terms of being able to take back her full and final settlement, take back her bonus and the rest of that, and get her to write a short mail of apology to the committee to be able to explain her stance so that we had it for records. So we did a bit of ceremony, but by and large, we just got her off the hook on this with the data that we cared and bothered to be able to gather. Now, why am I sharing this with you? It's because I think accusing people, finding people guilty, just the drama of saying, look at what people are doing here. I find a lot of people playing along on this game within organizations rather than being able to see that as hallmark reasons for people trusting us more within the organization. Hallmark reasons for knowing, I'm assured that I'm led here by a group of trusted people. This ought to not be a single person's intervention, but a group of people who have the wisdom and the grace to be fair to people no matter where the data is pointing, that you will take the effort to be able to find the right data and do right unto people within organizations. She moved on, all right, but she moved on with her head held high because she had not stolen the data. And it's important for organizations. It was interesting that she wrote the letter of apology. When she left the room, I turned around to the group and said, I'm just wondering when we will reach to become organizations where we can write a letter of apology for someone who's been accused of something they didn't do. So the point I'm making here is there wisdom within the organization? Is there courage? Being compassionate, the other C for compassion is courage. And so do you have the courage to be compassionate, to intervene? Yeah. Will wisdom prevail when everything has been lost? Yeah. What is the joy in being able to crucify people or putting them down or making them feel lower than themselves? Or to just presume that people are here to cheat us and people are here to be able to deprive us of something or to reduce us in some form? That opposite perspective is so important. And I'm calling this out to you because you're all coaches of people who need to have the self-confidence to be able to show compassion in the workplace. A lot of people intervene to help personally, but can you do this in a workplace, yeah, where there are also human beings, and it's not because you want anything from them, it's because it's your leadership work, and that it's your job to be able to create that environment. Yeah, I don't know whether we've crossed time, but I will leave you with a much shorter second story. We had a management trainee who joined in a year where we had about over 100 management trainees joining. So he was from a leading B school. After the induction, they were all deployed. So he was also deployed, and he went to one of our businesses where within I think 2 weeks, they returned him saying that, no, I don't think he's the right fit. Right. So he came back. And so all his remaining colleagues had all been placed, but he was returned because they said, no, we don't find the fit. Now he got redeployed, and within a month, he got returned from the second place as well, saying that, no, I don't think this is a marketing job. He's not expressive, and we don't really think so. Why don't we try and see something else? Now, I did pick up the phone to be able to talk to the CEO of that business, saying that please don't return him. This would be bad reputation for him. Can't we work on him? I mean, why do we think there's an option of returning? We should work with people to make them successful. So he said, this is going to be a setup to fail syndrome for him. He's not good at this. So it's better we find something good for him in the organization. So this time round, I had not hired him. This time round, I asked him to come in and talk to me. I wanted to know who he was. And I'm saying this level of personal interest to know, particularly people who are failing, to understand why they're failing, is a primary leadership job within organizations. I'm afraid it's not performed very well. So I called him in and I tried understanding. I said, so tell me your profile again. Like, what did you do? Which school, which college, all of that. He was an engineer. And he said, I stay in Dharavi. And I thought of Dharavi as, by the way, for everyone else, are slums, the largest slums in the Mumbai region. And so I didn't know whether it was in the slums or whether did he mean some building near Dharavi. But as the conversation progressed, he told me he lives in the slums and they basically sponsor his engineer. The second, he went the MBA after that. I think someone's mic has come on. So the second thing he did was, after having worked for 3 years, he went for an MBA and he got into NMIMS school, which is a very big B school in Mumbai. And then he said that after that he got the job and he's here. And so I tried asking him, so what's going on? Because you've been returned from 2 deployments. Do you want to tell me what's going on with you? Like, are you okay with this? Were you not given a fair chance? I want to try and understand, how are you treating this? What are your reflections? And he said, no, I think that first place, basically, I don't even think it's my area of interest. So I don't know. And then I said, okay. And then he just kept quiet and he had nothing else to say. So we just stayed in silence for some time. And I recommend these pauses very much as you're talking to people, because there's just so much that happens in silence. And so he came back to be able to say, after some silence, he said to me that, I have struggled with the scenario of coming to a B school where everyone was affluent around me. Now, this big organization overwhelms me even more because I don't know how to reconcile this, what I do the whole day, with having to reconcile this with the poverty that I see at home, and that I return to a drunk father who's on the floor and a mother who has just finished her 7th domestic job and has come back to the house. And he says, I'm just not able to reconcile these worlds. And I'm saying, so you just don't know who's struggling with what. I'm really delighted to tell you, we worked very closely with him. He's a senior vice president in one of the companies today. And I'm delighted with how it is that he took off to be able to succeed first in an environment where he was failing, and then to move on to be able to even greater heights in his career by finding and resurrecting the confidence within him to want to succeed. So I'm going to leave you off with this, and I wish you all the best. Can't close this without letting you know that the grief that we hold privately, yeah, causes exhaustion. Yeah, that it's not uncommon that we try harder because we don't want this grief, privately held grief, to be seen by people. That there is extreme showmanship, which is often a compensation for what it is that people actually experience inside, and that their positive energy and happiness requires free choice to be able to rejuvenate themselves so that you can remain compassionate to yourself. So my first and last invitation to all the coaches on this call today is, do not compromise on compassion to yourself. If you want to be the coach who wants to teach compassion, you want more compassionate leaders, start by being able to be compassionate yourself. Do things that you love doing, have hobbies. Do not invest in showmanship to be able to show people that you're happier than you really are. You're actually exhausting yourself even more. But acknowledge what it is that's causing you grief, what it is that's causing you exhaustion, and rejuvenate yourself, because the only way we can be compassionate to others is when we are compassionate to ourselves. So leaving you with that thought, and thank you everyone. Thanks for the extended time, Anne. And, I really enjoyed talking to all of you. Thanks for the steady stream of all the, your emotions, your questions and your views that you've kept posting alongside. I wish we had a longer duration to be able to take more questions. Thank you everyone for all the love and for all the affection. And I'd love to be able to meet with you another day. I did do a keynote at one of the ICF events a couple of years ago, and I remember having a great time talking to people. And maybe another separate masterclass to be able to talk together, exchange our ideas as coaches and our experiences as coaches. I wish you all the very best. I was trying to give you a glimpse of where this manifests when you actually build compassion to lead. And never, ever forget the compassion towards self. It's right at the center of the work we do. So good luck, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee. I mean, truly, we didn't want this to stop, and we could go on because it is something that has touched upon, I think, of everybody. And you can see with the reactions and with the kind of comments that are coming in. But I am also mindful of time. So what I will do then is suggest, if everybody can come on camera, we can take a photograph. Nandini can help us taking photographs. While you can also continue to post your questions here on the chat group. Dr. Banerjee, we do have a certificate of appreciation for you, just as a small token for your time here today. If everybody can come on camera, Nandini, you can help with then taking the photographs, and you can continue to put your messages on the chat screen. We will take a break after this session, and we will come back at 12:20. But for those who want to stay and they want to put in their questions, Dr. Banerjee, I'll request you to stay on with us for a little more while so that we can answer those questions. Anthony, let us know when you're done with the photographs. Everybody, please, let's put on our photographs. Put our video cameras on. Thank you, Dr. Banerjee. Dr. Banerjee shared her contact email on the chat screen for those who want to write into her. Yeah. Great. So Nandini is done with the photographs. I also do want to tell everybody who's on call, I spoke about the CCEUs, and I do want to mention that as of today, we complete with 58.5 CCUs. We've got 43.25 CCs and 15.25 RDs that have been rolled out as part of all these the conversations that we've had under the celebration for 10 years.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
Good, Chris. So for those who want to take the break, I know there's lots that we've discussed, and we would want to observe that. You can log off now and join back at 12:20. And for those who have questions for Dr. Banerjee, we'll be here. I think there was this one session, Dr. Banerjee. I took most of my notes that I've usually done.
All right, lovely.
And but I think what was 3 questions that you asked us, right? I think those are important questions that we could keep asking ourselves at every day, every moment,
Yeah.
to be able to really live what we learned today.
Okay, that's lovely. I mean, I'm delighted at some of the comments here and so on, and also as this was triggering off, so many sort of views and so many perspectives on this group. Can compassion be cultivated, or is it natural? This is so interesting, and can absolutely be cultivated. The EQ muscle, your social intelligence, everything can be learned. Normally people who are poor on EQ or have a weaker EQ muscle have their own own stories, you know, I mean, they have their own experiences. You know, there's a very important dimension in EQ called self-regard, which is how you view yourself. And that's right at the center of interpersonal capability. You know what I mean? And oftentimes when people don't show empathy, when they don't show compassion, it's rooted in early trauma, early childhood experiences. But you know, I always respond to any early trauma stories or early trauma questions by being able to say something that I learned many years ago when I actually watched an interview with an erstwhile Hollywood actress called Ingrid Bergman, right? And you know, she was all in her 80s or very you know, very sort of very old and very graceful, and she was talking about her experience with therapy. And she said that, the best part of being in therapy is, I think someone's mic's on. So she said the best part of being in therapy was when I got this moment with my therapist where I had started rattling off something that I feel or something that I experience because of something that happened when I was 6. And then I said that, and also I do this because, this has happened to me when I was 17. And she said very calmly, my therapist said, "And how old are you now, Ingrid?" And she said, "I'm 83." And she said, "Right. So you're 83, and it's okay to feel the way you did when you were 6. It was okay to feel the way you did when you were 17. Yeah, but you're 83. You know what I mean? So at 83, we're still carrying that. You're not 17 and you're not 6. And so a lot of work that we do, what we typically discover is that the weak muscles coming out of some experience.
Sorry, Dr. Banerjee, I think I put you on mute while I was trying to put somebody else on mute. So if you can unmute yourself, Dr. Banerjee, sorry.
All right. So what I meant was that, a lot of self-regard is right at the center of, low empathy or low social responsibility and the rest of that. It's also learned behavior. I mean, how do you build emotional and social intelligence? By watching significant influencers through your growing years, and that's normally parents, teachers, significant family members, and you learn on how to manage relationships by watching them. And so you can unlearn many of these as you come along, because it would not have served even them well to not be empathetic. It would have not served them well to not be compassionate. So, we've seen scores as low as 60 and 63 turn into 123, literally doubling their EQ in a span of 4 to 6 months. It's just becoming more conscious and more self-aware to be able to choose a behavior that you want to be able to show up as in the moment. And you can absolutely fix your EQ, and to your point on be consciously more compassionate. So I don't know, any other questions? Are you seeing any other questions come up? We're still in the break, right?
Yeah, we're still in the break. No other questions come up. I think Anupam, you've asked for the presentation note that won't be shared, which is why Dr. Banerjee had made a comment at the beginning for us to take notes, because this is proprietary material.
Okay, if there's something in particular you want, yeah, Anupam, you can basically, I've just given you my email ID. Tell me what you want. You know what I mean? There's something specific you want, I might be able to send it to you. Some of these come out of, collaborative research, and then they get sort of licensed only to Capstone. So that's the problem I was talking to her about, that some of them are the ones that we're using at Capstone. I'll read out some of the comments here. Yeah, Bharti says, also when we wish from the heart and enjoy others' happiness truly, I think it can trigger EQ and help intervene compassion. Absolutely. I think compassion is an outcome of interpersonal capability. Yeah, it's an outcome for wanting harmony in relationships and also wanting to be fair to people. So it comes very much from there. Ambuj is saying there is a lot of talk about authenticity, how to encourage coaches, leaders to be authentically fearful and authentically courageous. Actually, the fearful part is often authentic, but they don't want to show up as that. And they try covering up for that, and that makes them unauthentic. So instead, giving them the sort of the support around the negative emotions is actually what will make them more authentic. You think about people who are in the armed forces, for example, right? If there's somebody very senior and he needs to move, the junior people give him cover, which means you're facing the enemy and you're running across to be able to make sure this person can move, right? Can you imagine? They're all young cadets, so they're very young people who are doing this. Yeah, this is a very good example of fear in motion. Yeah, they know they're going to die. Yeah, they could die at any point in time, but they're still moving. and they're still moving. And so, how do we get people to be able to, and the corporate world is far less harsher than being in the armed forces. So, you're not going to die at any point in time. And in the worst case, you may not work there. But so it's relatively an easier risk to take. And I think that there is growing, sort of, I wouldn't say fan following, but a deep respect and regard for people who are courageous in the workplace. So I think it's a good time to be courageous, actually. So you run lesser of a risk as you would have in the command and control styles. It's it's slowly more egalitarian space where people do understand that, the people you're leading are children of the knowledge era. They're people who are well informed. They may not be experienced like you, and they may not have your kind of skill set, but they're very in the know. They're knowledgeable. They have far greater agency to speak up. Most young people are making all the decisions at home. So, you're not dealing with an ordinary regular group of people who used to join 20 and 25 years ago. These are quite extraordinary, and you got to recognize that to be able to integrate them. The
There's also questions from Ida. It says, in my view, many leaders know about this compassion, but in real, also many do not apply it. In
yeah,
your view, Dr. Banerjee, what's the big thing to hold it? What is the big thing to hold it?
Yeah, so you see, there's a lot of talk about authenticity, how to encourage coaches, leaders to be authentically fearful, authentically courageous at the same time, is to talk to them about emotional agility, because everyone has that muscle inside them. The idea is to get them to recognize that it is okay to have both, and you're not faking it when you're trying to be courageous because you want to show up as courageous. But courage has got to be a value for you. That's when it becomes authentic. And you can hold two emotions at the same time. That's the point which I was making. You mentioned there are different brain areas for sympathy, empathy, compassion. Which are they? So the idea is the circuitries are different in the brain on how you interpret sympathy and how you feel. Basically, how these circuits work for you to feel sympathy, empathy, compassion. And my purpose of telling you that they are separate is that they're not integrated in the same. So because you feel sympathy, you're not going to feel empathy because that circuitry may not be active. And because you have empathy does not mean you're going to be compassionate, because their circuitries to be able to intervene to help is also different. So that's the frustration we have often, because some people appear like they're sympathetic, but you're not really getting any compassionate action from them. And it looks like the knowing and doing gap, which is they seem to know it, but why aren't they doing it? Is because the circuits are different and some people will just not intervene to be able to do this. Right? In my coaching work, and I've just coached thousands of leaders on EQ, I do believe that when you actually break this up for people, yeah, they begin understanding that my feeling empathetic is not the same as compassion. Right? And that for this, I got to intervene to be able to do something. And that's like an aha for a lot of people. You know what I mean? Because a lot of them think that they're very kind and they have a great self-opinion around how empathetic they might really be. So even giving them examples of empathy in the workplace, you know what I mean, which is underperforming employee. Are you intervening to help? Yeah, someone who's basically not settling down in the team. Are you intervening to help? Someone not getting invited, but they should have been invited to this meeting. Are you intervening to help? So you can see that when you're intervening to help, it's an act of courage. And a lot of people don't want to do that, which is why should I get into other people's affairs? And this is unfortunately very deeply ingrained in a lot of people, which is impacting real manifestation of positive interpersonal capability. So it's an aha. If you in your journey as a coach, you can help people understand this, and that intervention is important. And that how many opportunities of intervention do you really have? You know what I mean? There are plenty around you. And it's for you to be able to choose the ones where you want to be able to take a really firm stance, like I gave you examples, firm stance to help, which is, this is you. It was so easy in the second example to ask the person to go. If you've been returned from 2 placements, normally people don't keep you, right? And instead we said, no, there's something going amiss here. And when you have something going amiss, right, that's your empathy muscle telling you, hey, get in here. There's something that is going amiss, because he cleared all the entrance processes. So, how did we end up hiring someone who's not working out anywhere? Let's get into it. What is the objective of getting into it? Because then you'll have greater ability to also intervene in the way we are hiring people if we've ended up getting in someone at a high cost in the premier program who's not being able to, make his mark. So yeah, intervene. I think for a lot of people, it's just the awareness that you're expected to intervene when you're a leader, and you may choose where you want to intervene. But intervene meaningfully to be able to support people. That is the real leadership work, not just, oh, I feel, yeah, I mean, I understand what you might be experiencing. No, no, no. You intervene, and that's why you're the leader. And so helping them in their leadership journey of being able to show care and compassion. I mean, it's the biggest winning card in the current times, especially with multi-generations. So I hope that answered the question. Yeah. All right. Super. So good luck, everybody. And thank you, Anne, again. I'm just so grateful for this. And I hope to be in touch with the ICF community. And, congratulations again for all the good work that you all are doing. And, do let us know how we can contribute to be able to make it any better. Yeah. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the conference. Take care.
Thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee.
Thanks
Bye.
very much.
Thank you.
It's
Bye-bye.
been a beautiful session, very enlightening, lots of information
Thank you, Dexter.
and
Good.
clarity.
Yes. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Best, everyone.